Welcome to Try Friend Heroes, a Legend of Zelda podcast. I'm Ellen.
I'm Kayla.
And I'm Kazum.
In this podcast, we're aiming to explore the Legend of Zelda series from the beginning, in order, and including some spin-offs, to see what we can learn about Link, Zelda, and the world of Hyrule. And we'll be discussing gameplay, visuals, and music from the game, and as well as the lore and stories of Hyrule, but maybe not in like one timeline like Brian David Gilbert. And to kick off this podcast, I think we should start with introducing ourselves and talking about our experience with the Legend of Zelda series, and also any hopes that we have for this podcast as we explore the world of Hyrule from beginning to end. Or whatever, beginning to now, not end.
It'll never end.
Theoretically, there's a Breath of the Wild 2 in progress, right?
Yep, we may be able to get to it.
Maybe. We might, actually. Huh?
It's like I saw footage.
Yeah, but they're cute. There was footage in like 2019,
Yeah.
so it's okay. We're only crying on the inside. I'll start. So my name's Ellen. All of us hosted a podcast together about the anime or the manga series Full Metal Alchemist previously. So if you're joining us because you listened to that, hi, welcome back.
Love you.
If not, yes. If not, hi for the first time. And I always knew about the Legend of Zelda series, but my first kind of like real experience with it was playing Wind Waker. So me and my sister had a N64 and played it a lot, but didn't have like Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask, or any of the games kind of before that. And so that was my first experience, and it was a great game. And until recently, it was my favorite Zelda game. But I think Breath of the Wild, which is the most recent Legend of Zelda game, is my new favorite. It's stolen my heart and surpassed Wind Waker's place in my heart. This series, I'm hoping to just kind of experience the series from end to end and like actually beat some games other than Breath of the Wild. I have technically almost beaten Wind Waker. Almost. I got to the last boss, but I never finished it. And I was like, I'll finish that someday. And then like, went to university and then never did. Oh, actually, I think what happened was the Wii came out probably. So there you go.
Did you never get it for the Wii U? Did you have a Wii U?
I have it for the Wii U.
You do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I started it and then,
Yeah.
I don't know, I had a job.
Yep.
So, whatever. So, yeah, actually, I will be forced to play it on the Wii U unless I can find my GameCube before then. Cosmo and Kayla have been listening to me complain about this for the last, 3 weeks that I can't find. I moved before we started recording this, and now I can't find my GameCube, and I'm really sad about it. I found a bunch of other games, but not Wind Waker, and I'm mad. Anyway, so I'll be playing it on Wii U probably when the time comes when we get to that part of the series. But I guess speaking of which, we'll be playing the games like in the order that they were released, but sometimes through emulators or other things, like through re-releases. Yeah, exactly. So
Remakes.
I don't know. Look
Isn't
forward to
there?
that.
There's one exception that we're putting them close together, right?
Yes.
I mean, technically Four Swords is out of order because you've got all the multiplayer games together.
That might be.
I think that
might
was
be
what
the
I
one.
moved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, the original Four Swords, which came out with
The GBA re-release of A Link to the Past.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So we're gonna play Link to the Past, and then later, much later, many months from now, we're gonna play Four Swords and Four Swords Adventure. In theory, if we can find a way to play them together, because both of them were on consoles that are not online, so that'll be a good time. But yeah, we're gonna play those games together, and like toward the end of this series, we'll like look at spin-offs, like Link's Crossbow Training, the greatest Zelda spin-off, or like Hyrule Warriors or Smash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think we have an episode planned that's like just all the spin-offs. So yes. All right. So I want to hear from you about the things, your experience with Legend of Zelda, and what you're hoping to do in this podcast series.
Very technically, my first experience playing a Zelda game was playing the Majora's Mask display version in Best Buy.
Whoa, Best Buy! I thought you were gonna say Blockbuster.
No.
And I was really excited.
And having no clue what was going on and really wanting to see what happened when that timer went down, but I always had to, leave and go home when my parents left the store.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I remember wandering around Clocktown as Deku Link, wondering what the fuck I was doing.
Sounds fun.
But my first actual game was also Wind Waker.
Ooh.
It's good. Just like you, I had a N64 as a kid, but I wasn't really into the Zelda series at that point, and so
Yeah.
the first time I actually sought one out and played it was Wind Waker, which I love. It's probably still my favorite of this game. I like Breath of the Wild a lot, but it's so different that it almost feels like its own category of the Zelda games.
That's fair.
Yeah. It is a completely different game.
But yeah, since then I played most of the ones that have come out since then to some degree, even if I didn't finish them.
So for me, I have a vivid memory of hanging out with a friend who had an N64 and he was excited for Ocarina of Time. And he got me really excited for it. And he had like this can of SpaghettiOs that I guess had promotional image. He let me take that home and I put that on my like nightstand by my bed and I'd like stare at it like, oh my god, that's so cool.
Wow.
Was this an empty can or did it still
No,
have
it was. I
SpaghettiOs
think.
in it?
I don't. Actually, it may have been a full can, but I didn't like SpaghettiOs, so I never ate it. Or it could have been an empty. It could have been an empty can, and I guess it was washed out. I don't know why you would have that though.
This isn't the story that I was expecting you to tell.
So then,
I love the image of baby Cosm just staring longingly at this can of SpaghettiOs on his
Being like,
nightstand.
Wow, I can't wait for Ocarina of Time. Wow. And it's just like, video.
and then yeah, so this was before I even had an N64, I think, and I was able to get one shortly after, and I got Zelda Ocarina of Time.
Nice.
Loved it. Got Majora's Mask, and that had been my favorite game for the longest time.
Ooh.
And then, I mean, Wind Waker I enjoy a lot, but there's just something about Majora's Mask. I think a lot of it is the aesthetics of it. It's just a very different and like kind of creepy and like strange, weird world. I just really like that.
Yeah, it has a mood.
A vibe.
Yeah.
It's like the Lavender Town of video games.
It kind of is. There's
Yeah.
probably just as many creepypastas about it.
Oh, yeah.
I've not been exposed. I know about the creepy moon, and that's pretty much it. And I know that it's a creepy game, but
Yeah.
I'm excited to see this take on Legend of Zelda.
And then I've pretty much played every Zelda game since, and I think I've beaten them all. That has been released since. So I think
Since Majora's
since
Mask.
since Ocarina.
Since Ocarina
yeah.
of Time.
I think Zelda 1 I don't think I ever beat. Zelda 2 I don't think I had ever played before this. And Link's Awakening I hadn't played until the re-release.
You played the Switch version?
Yeah, I played the Switch version. But I think everything since, Ocarina of Time I've played and beaten. And like my favorite game changes cuz Breath of the Wild was so good. I've gotten into Ocarina of Time Randomizer, which is a whole thing. I've played a lot of that, and oh my god, it's made me love that game even more.
Have you played the like Breath of the Wild Second Wind?
No, what
Has
is
anyone
that?
heard of this? It's like a
No.
fan created thing. I don't know that much about it. I was just curious. So Second Wind is an ambitious community project that aims to bring new content to Breath of the Wild through mods and other fan favorite ideas. So it's just Breath of the Wild mods.
Cool.
It's kind of interesting because the Zelda series has a long history of like a second quest.
Yes.
So it's kind of interesting that fans are kind of doing the same thing.
I think that Zelda 1 was like one of the first games to have a second quest, like the first.
Yeah, it's like one of the first games
any
ever to
first
have
game.
any kind of new game plus
Yeah.
type thing.
Yeah, and plus in well, I mean, from Wind Waker, you can play in Link's PJs at the end.
Yes.
I can't remember if it's the same game, but I know his sprite is different. His character.
It changes a couple of things. I think the game itself is the same, but like the Hylian text that the like god creatures talk in is translated and stuff.
Oh, really?
Like Jaboon and
Yes.
Oh,
Valu and stuff.
that's
I didn't
neat.
play the
Do
second
hearts
game.
also not drop as easily? I thought that was part of the new game plus for Wind Waker, but I could be wrong.
Could be.
Not as
Sure.
We'll
many
I think
find
there
out
might-
later.
I think there might also be like a harder version on the re-release,
On
but I
HD.
can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember. I could be making shit up, but I do know that the Hylian is translated in the original New Game Plus, which is cool.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that is cool. A reason to try to beat it this time and continue and play through it again. Twice. Do you think you can do it in like 5 weeks or however much time I planned for Wind Waker?
I know Wind Waker pretty well. I probably could.
I think I can play Wind Waker pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Plus, I won't do every single side quest in Windfall Island like I did as a
You want to do
tween.
the endless trading quest and
do all the what's the thing with the camera? You have to take photos
Yeah.
with the
Oh
camera.
yeah.
Yeah.
I always did that because I loved having the color picta box, so I could start doing the statue collection.
I liked playing the games. There's like one where you have to like, well, there's like hide and seek. There's like a hide and seek mini quest thing, and then there's like one where you have to follow people and see what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember all of them, but
I
thought
like
it
the
was
really, really unenthusiastic guy who hosts like the battleship minigame and stuff.
He's one of my
Yeah.
favorites. Him and Beetle.
NPCs in that game are great. I was glad Beetle came back in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
I saw an article recently that's been going around that someone pushed all the Beetle
Yeah.
NPCs together, which makes me really happy. Do you guys have specific things that you're hoping to get out of this series? This like podcast?
I mean, just
Adventure?
playing them all again, because there's some like Minish Cap I remember liking a lot, but I think I only played it the once and never really played it again. So just going through and playing some of the ones that I probably wouldn't like think to play again.
Nice.
Yeah, I'd like to experience, especially the older games before I really got into the series that I didn't have as much time playing. I've dipped my toes into almost every game, but a lot of times I would just play like a little bit and be like, oh, this is fun, and then get distracted by something else. Like I remember, like you were, Cosmo, you were talking about not playing Link's Awakening until the Switch version. I remember I played the Game Boy Color version a little bit, but I like kept getting attacked by chain chomps, which was confusing, and so I like stopped playing as a child.
I read. I have not confirmed this fact, but I read that there's like a warp whistle in Super Mario Brothers 3, I think, where you can. I haven't played like a lot of Super Mario Bros. 3, but apparently you can like warp between different levels or something. Apparently the sound effect is the same as from Legend of Zelda, like the flute item. Because apparently the team at Nintendo that was working on the original Mario Brothers was working on the first Legend of Zelda at the same time. So it's like the same development team. Anyway, I don't know if that's true. Can't confirm. But briefly read while I was doing research.
Yeah, there's a lot of little crossovers, like, or not really crossovers, but like nods between those two series being, you know, like Nintendo's biggest cash cow franchises. So.
Yes. I guess I feel like I should add my own personal gaming experience, which is like I have played. So you, Kayla, you played at least most of them since since the GameCube, and Cosmo, you played most of them since the N64. Well, you played all of them or most of them except for Zelda 2, right? Before this,
I think that was also the only one I hadn't like even slightly played, other than like Four Swords Adventures. But
yeah, I've only played like the more modern ones, so I'm gonna go backwards. I played Breath of the Wild. I remember starting Skyward Sword and at the time not liking it very much. And I played some of Twilight Princess and Triforce Heroes, the 3DS one. That was really fun. We played that.
Yes,
We've all played that together, I think, briefly in the past, and when we were in the same physical location. Oh, I played a little bit of the Ocarina of Time, like 3D, that came out for the remake for 3DS in the past. And I remember maybe playing Ocarina of Time a little bit when I was like younger and being confused, like not sure where to go. I wasn't very good at video games as a kid. I feel like that's why I got Wind Waker. Like I understood how to play it. I was like old enough to understand how to play that kind of game for some reason. Like it all kind of clicked at the same time. So yeah. And I never played any of the older games. My grandparents had an NES, but we didn't have one at our house. So I had like played an NES as a child, but not substantially. And we never had a SNES.
Yeah, I had a friend with a SNES, but I never played a Zelda game on it. And I never had it, so I didn't play any of the older games until they got like re-releases on like Game Boy Advance and stuff.
The GameCube came with that special edition. Actually, I think that only had the NES games. It had Zelda 1 and Zelda 2.
Yeah, that like special edition Ocarina of Time disc or whatever.
Yeah, the Master Quest, right?
Yeah.
Is that the one you're talking about? Yeah.
I believe I own that, and I got it used at GameStop, and the case for it says like not for resale or something, which is really funny to me.
GameCube don't care. Don't do anything.
Breaking the law.
Yes, we're talking about the Zelda Collector's Edition.
Yeah.
Yeah, it came with the GameCube, I think.
Yeah, I think there was.
Ours certainly did.
Or like a pre-order thing, I can't remember.
Was it a pre-order for Wind Waker or something? Because like
it came with something, because it didn't come with my GameCube on its own.
It had a demo. I don't know what it came with. I don't know how we got it, but it arrived at my house as a youth. Like I didn't ask for it. You know what I'm saying? Maybe my parents just bought it when they bought the GameCube or something. Maybe they were like, yeah, whatever. Maybe it was some kind of promo.
Let's see. It came with a demo of Wind Waker.
It did. That's why I played the demo, and then I was like, I must acquire this game. So it worked. The marketing worked. Anyway, that was a little bit about us and our Zelda experience and some other things.
SpaghettiOs.
I wish I had promotional like Wind Waker SpaghettiO nostalgia. So like we discussed today, I think we briefly alluded to this, but today we're talking about The Legend of Zelda, the original release for NES, and then also Zelda II, The Adventure of Link, the second game in the series, also for NES. We're starting where it all began. And in this game, in The Legend of Zelda, Ganon has taken over the land of Hyrule, stolen the royal treasure, the Triforce of Power, and captured Princess Zelda. We play as Link as he collects the broken Triforce of Wisdom, gains strength, and conquers Ganon. And this game was originally released for the Famicom, the like Famicom Disk System specifically, which was like an add-on for it that did a lot of things. Like it basically was. Have you ever heard of this?
A little bit.
It was like an add-on that let developers develop games on floppy disks, the greatest technology at the time in the 80s, right? But it was cheaper than the cartridges apparently. And apparently the Famicom Disk System also enabled like better sound. So apparently the sound on some games that are from the like that you can play on the Famicom Disk System sounds better than the NES, because the Famicom was only released in Japan and the NES was only released in like outside of Japan basically. Anyway, that's a fun fact that I learned.
To get around the video game crash.
Yes. Apparently, like, at the video game crash.
Yeah. They're like, no one's going to buy a video game system. It's an entertainment system.
Yes. They also apparently designed it specifically to look like a VCR and work like a VCR, which I never connected the two, but definitely it's like that. It has like a flap. The NES specifically has this flap in the front, and then you push the cartridge in, and then you kind of like push it down like a like a VHS tape.
VHS.
If you were born after like the year 2000, you will have no idea what we're talking about. I was having a conversation with my coworkers recently, and I said the SNES, and they were like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Excuse me, I have to go lay down." And specifically, The Legend of Zelda was released on a gold-colored cartridge for NES. Yes, which everyone knows colored plastic is the key to a child's heart when it comes to video game systems.
That's
right?
why Pokemon did so well, right?
Yes. And also why the like the greatest color Nintendo ever invented was like clear purple.
Oh yeah.
So, The Legend of Zelda for NES and Famicom was well received at the time by critics, and I think is still a highly rated game today. As of 2020, it sold 6.51 million copies worldwide, apparently. And these are like physical copies for the most part, I think.
Is that only the NES version? Not any like resales or re-releases, rather?
I don't know. I think it's all combined. These are numbers from that were announced by Nintendo at the Game Developer Conference, aka GDC. And these are numbers as of 2020. By the way, the top selling one was Breath of the Wild, and then below that I think was Ocarina of Time.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll put a link in the description and people can go and peruse and judge for themselves.
I think one of the reasons for Ocarina of Time though is that it was released so many times.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, it was released for N64, and then it was released on that GameCube thing, and then it was re-released in 3D.
And then they've had it on every
Lots of
Nintendo
virtual
store
console.
as emulated,
Yeah.
for every system since.
Yes. Yeah, and now they just recently released them for Switch. It was like one of the first ones that came out for Switch.
Purchase it though. You just download it from having the subscription, correct?
Yeah, you have to have the fancy subscription.
You can't just
I don't
buy
know
it.
what it's called. No, you can't just buy it.
It's like it's just something silly like Online Plus or something.
Yeah, there's like the online, and then there's like the fancier online that lets you have the extra Mario Kart levels and all the N64 games that are on there.
Yeah, when I was renewing my online subscription, I looked at the games and I like own all the ones I care about on the N64. So
I just need it for Animal Crossing, which I haven't been able to play for the last like 3 weeks because I was scared I would lose my save file, which is what happened when I was playing Legend of Zelda. So, yeah, so I still have mine. So, I played, for the record, we're talking about Legend of Zelda and Zelda 2, and they were both, like I said, released for NES, which I do have, but I don't have either of those games. So I played them on the Switch emulator.
As I played the Game Boy Advance Nintendo Classics release of Legend of Zelda, but I played the Switch Online version of Zelda 2.
Nice. I want to hear about the GameCube one later. I mean, the GameCube. Wow, Game Boy Advance.
You're just stuck on that GameCube.
I love the GameCube so much.
Where is it?
Where is it? The other game we're talking about today, to keep this on track, is Zelda II: The Adventure of Link, which was originally released for Famicom about a year after Legend of Zelda, and in 1987. Yeah, just over a year. Like it was like 1 year and 1 month, I think, if I look at the timing, which is pretty crazy. And it was released in about the same time period for NES outside of Japan, so like about a year later. It was also well received by critics at the time, but at the same time, I think it's has kind of a split regard amongst fans as being like, some people really love it and it's like their nostalgia game for them, where that's the game they played all the time as a child. And some really like the combat, which I personally hated. And it's like, you know, regarded as possibly the hardest game of the series. So yeah, it's kind of split. And it sold 4.3 million copies worldwide. So still pretty popular, but not as popular as the original Legend of Zelda. That is my intro. You want to talk about the game and how we played it?
Sure.
And what happened and how it was hard and how we cried? Oh, that was just me.
So, I didn't mention, I played all these on a computer emulator of the NES. So it's essentially the same as the NES version.
Did it have the same garbage translation?
I
I'm
think
just
so.
curious. Okay, because
Yeah,
I think they every time they port it, they update the translation. I saw some interesting comparison of the translations of Legend of Zelda.
Interesting.
Yeah, the Switch one has a new translation, basically, from what I can see from
okay.
screenshots.
Yeah. It's like, did yours say, many years ago, Prince Darkness Gannon with 3 N's stole one of the triforce with power?
Did it? I don't remember.
I love old video game translations.
Right. Did you watch the intro before you started
I
playing, or did you just
did.
like dive in?
Button mash.
Okay.
No, I'm pretty sure I did watch it.
They both have good start screens. They both have really interesting start screens. I guess we can talk about it when we talk about visuals, but yes.
So the original Zelda is pretty standard. You have your shield, which you just kind of hold out in front of you, and it's active I think as long as you're not swinging.
Yeah, as long as you're not attacking.
Yeah, okay.
As long as you're not attacking and as long as you're facing the thing.
Yes.
I would know because I died a lot.
Which for me is such a very unintuitive thing to not have a button to shield. It blocks. It took me so long to get used to it.
The sound effect and the little arrows bouncing off your shield are really satisfying, though.
The arrows bouncing away made me really happy. And also, yeah, we're used to having the option to accept death.
Yeah.
And then you've got one button for your sword and one button for your item, whatever item you choose to equip.
Don't accidentally equip the potion. That also may or may not have been a mistake that I may or may not have made.
Let's see, you've got some standard items like bombs and arrows and hook shot.
Do you have hook shot?
Do you? I thought so, but I could be thinking of Zelda 2.
Zelda
Do you have a hook shot in Zelda 2?
Is there not one in that either?
Are you playing the right game in there?
Did you play a ROM hack?
Yeah, really. There's no hook shot. It's like
there is not. Okay.
There's bombs.
There's like no items in Zelda 2.
Yeah, because it's all magic. So in Zelda 1, there was like you get the shield, and then you could upgrade the shield. There's like a magic shield. There's arrows, bombs, and then you have to get the special arrow.
There's a boomerang.
Ganon. Oh yeah, there's a boomerang. I forgot about that.
Yep.
There's also a magic boomerang. There's like
which is just a worse arrow.
It didn't seem to do very much. I didn't use it very much.
It could be used. You could like stun some enemies, which could be handy. But
yes, what is it? Oh, sword, and then sword. Most importantly, you have a sword. Key to the Zelda series, perhaps. And the sword had 2 upgrades. It has like the white sword and the squiggly sword.
Yeah,
but not the master sword.
There's also a magic wand, and you can get an upgrade to the magic wand that lets you set things on fire, which was pretty great.
Yeah, some very iconic items that are used throughout most of the games.
There was also the flute item. I forgot about the flute, or whatever it's called. I think I saw on Zeldapedia it's called the recorder, which made me laugh.
You play hot cross buns at the enemies.
Or like the Titanic theme song or whatever. Yeah, it has a little sound effect. I don't know. I personally turned off my sound a lot when I was playing this game. But it has a sound effect, which is cute. And you have to use it to get to that one dungeon. And you can also, I didn't realize, but you can, if you're not at that one dungeon, you can warp to different other dungeons.
Yeah, it's
so
really handy.
It's handy. I never used it though. I just like walked around. But yeah, it's cute. So they kind of introduced the concept of like warping even in this game. I gotta say that I felt like Legend of Zelda, the original game, felt like a very Zelda game. Like,
Yes.
from having experienced other later games in the series, it kind of established a lot of the concepts that come back in later games. Like gameplay concepts, like dungeons, like some of the enemies. There's even like Lynels. There's Lynels in Breath of the Wild. So, like even in the most recent games.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive how much of their like core concepts they had established by the first game. Like, even if they like got much more refined down the line.
Oh, there's even like fairy fountains and stuff.
Potions.
Like you said, there's a second quest that you can do, which a lot of other Zelda games have.
Yeah, the whole general aspect of like go into a dungeon, find an item, beat the boss.
Yeah, you get a heart every time you go to a dungeon.
Yeah.
Usually you get 1 or 2 items or upgrades for your items every time you go in a dungeon.
Map, compass, key.
Yes, they all have
Course.
map, compass, and map. And then, yeah, keys open doors.
Yeah.
There's a magic key that lets you open every door, which is pretty great.
Yes.
Like, this is a good upgrade. I like that. How did you play? Were you able to play without using a guide?
I was able to get through most of it. There was one thing that I had to look up that I oh god, I'm getting, because I think I played this around the same time I played Link's Awakening. So I'm getting like mixed, and this was a while. Like, when did we start playing Zelda 1?
It was a long time ago. What
'cause
happened it was like almost a year ago, probably.
No,
Actually,
was it really?
the notes that we're looking at now, the first version is from February 18th. Anyway, so a long time, could have been a long time ago,
Yeah.
to answer your question.
Oh yeah, there was. It might have been for the Lost Woods. I think after the Lost Woods, so there's the graveyard. There might have been something there, but I definitely had to look up the graveyard for Link's Awakening. So I might be confusing. I don't remember, but it was something around there I had to look up, and then I had to. I don't remember what I did. I did something that got me stuck, and I had to figure out how to save the game and quit, because I locked myself in the dungeon somewhere or something like that. I don't remember, and I found out that the way you do that is you have to plug in player 2 and hit like up A, and that'll reset the game for you as if you had died. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and Zelda 2 is the same.
Yeah, you have to have a second controller to save.
I forgot. I forgot that kind of thing existed.
Yeah.
Fortunately, if you play on the Switch, they added like a quick save. So there's like 4 quick save slots, which is the only way. Well, no. I personally needed a guide to play this game efficiently.
I can't remember how you saved on the Game Boy Advance, but it was easier than having to have a second controller. I think I still had to look it up, but it wasn't as weird.
At least, you know what though? At least Legend of Zelda had save slots,
Yeah,
because
that wasn't
Mario
that
didn't.
common at the time.
No, it was. I remember I was reading another article because I did some actual like research to prepare for this episode. And other than playing it, and it was like Zelda was one of the first games to introduce the save system. I was like, oh yeah, true.
Yeah.
So at least it had some kind of save system, even if you had to use another controller.
Yeah, I consulted a map a lot. I only
Yes.
needed an actual guide for a couple of things, but I needed a
apparently
world
the
map
game-
for like all the random upgrades and shit. Because I remember at one point I got kind of stuck, like just like skill wise. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to
Yeah.
finish this game, and so I like went. I'm like, where do I find these upgrades? And so I found like upgrade for my sword and upgrade for my health and stuff, and then I was able to.
Yeah. Apparently the game originally came with a map as well. So I don't
Yeah.
know
Oh,
what was
yeah.
marked on it, but it did come with a map. So using the map isn't cheating. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Using the guide that I used was, I don't know, is it cheating? It's using a guide. We'll say. I started playing both games, both Legend of Zelda and Zelda 2, without any guidance, just to see. And like definitely Zelda 2 was easier to at least figure out places to go because you can see villages and palaces on the map and stuff like that. Legend of Zelda, it's easy to like wander into a place, but definitely I needed it. I needed the guide for like how to get upgrades to survive. I basically like died a lot and found like one dungeon.
Yeah, I actually resorted to a guide earlier in Zelda 2, and I think it's just because like it's almost like there's like just enough guidance to make it more confusing to me, because it's like they'll be like, "Oh, you need a candle to light dark places." I'm like, "Okay, well, obviously I shouldn't go in these caves yet because I don't have a candle. So where do I
Yeah.
find the candle?" But it's like you actually need to go through one of them to get to the first dungeon to get the candle.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah,
I found that starting off, I agree, but then once I got to Bagu in Zelda 2, where on the overworld you have to walk over a certain place and you get to a an encounter that once you get across, you then have the choice of going in any direction, and you have to make sure you go in the same direction you were going before to end up getting to him. So I like got there, and then there was nothing there, so I like moved, and I guess I didn't go the right direction, and so I was like, okay, that was weird, and like I guess I didn't think anything of it, but
Hmm.
then I figured out, so I have to go past it and then go into the next area. That's crazy. And then I was like,
yeah.
you
There's
know
lots
what?
of
I
like random
just
specific tiles that just do things in
yeah.
Zelda
That
2,
is
which
weird.
is weird.
I found that very strange. You're just like walking on a path to get to some place, and then there's like it transitions to the side scroller, and you're like, "Why am I in a new place?" So it's just this part of the map looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after that point, I was just like, I'm just gonna use a guide, and I'm glad I did because there was just so much that like there was a lot of interactions. You have to get this item, and then this person will talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like we're getting a little ahead of. I didn't even finish talking about Zelda 1, but I mean, there was like I want to go back to Zelda 1, and then
Okay.
we can talk
Okay.
about Zelda
We
2,
can talk about
just
Zelda 2 after.
because I have some thoughts about that.
Okay.
So an important part about Zelda 1 that I didn't mention yet is, although it's mostly an over the head, what do you call it?
Yeah, it's like
perspective.
top
Top
down.
down, yeah. You would go down like ladders or stairs or things, and that would take you to typically an underground place that is a 2D screen.
Yeah.
It's usually only for like one screen. Usually you transition out. But you know, it's interesting. They sucked. Oh my god, I hated them. Particularly against Keys.
Really?
Yeah, well,
You hate
they were
keys?
kind of perplexing because the gameplay was mostly for the top down, so you're kind of like, what am I doing? How do I
Well,
get
down
it's
here?
yeah, and then they're very unpredictable, and like they'd hide in walls where you couldn't even get to them, and
Yeah.
like the moment you decide, all right, fine, forget you, and you move, they start
Yes.
attacking you. I'm like, God.
Yes.
So
That's true.
but I think it was fun.
Did you like the enemy that when you hit it, it turns into a Morkis? I can't remember what it's called. But
Oh, he's a
someone
little
that,
gargoyle guy. He was
yeah,
really
yeah,
cute,
yeah.
but he was
Yeah, they
annoying.
hop
Yeah.
around. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, once you hit them, they turn into like 2 or 3 keys. The best. I really hated the
Um,
Dark Nuts because though I've encountered them in later games, I forgot that you have to attack them from like the side or from behind, which sounds simple in theory, but like my bad aim and like gameplay skills prevented me from efficiently attacking them, and I died a lot. There's like a couple rooms in one of the later dungeons where there's like just like 10 dark nuts in there and you
Yeah.
have to fight them, and I died a lot in those places. Oh, one thing I thought was interesting about another enemy was the Pulse voice, which none of us would have had the experience of doing this, but if you actually played it on a Famicom, the Famicom had a microphone, so you could blow in the microphone to attack it. So you either had to shoot it with an arrow or use your voice, which I thought was interesting. So they actually had that in this game console, which is cool.
cool.
Yeah, Zelda 2.
Well, the other section that I'm responsible for is speedruns
Oh yeah,
and cheats. There
yes.
aren't really many for Zelda. Really the biggest trick is a screen scroll, where as you reach the border of the screen, you cross the border and you have to hit a direction, I think perpendicular to where you're going. So if you're going right, you press up or down, and you'll just end up on the other side of the screen. So if you went from the right side, you looped around to the left, and then you just press left to go to the left side, for example. So you can skip entire screens that way by going like, you're on the left side or the right side of it.
On the map.
Yeah, so you just go backwards, loop around, and then move further left, and then you go backwards and
Oh, so like it's like on the same panel, so you like you're on the right, and then you basically can skip a screen. You can skip the middle of the screen.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. So instead of actually transitioning to the right side, like if you're going right, instead of transitioning to the next screen to the right, you end up on the left of the same screen.
The same screen. Okay. I see.
Yeah, and then you can
Oh.
go. And
I wish I
so
knew
and
I could have
and
avoided finding so many things.
um and if you end up in like rocks or trees or things that you normally can't get through, usually you can just they're usually typically one way, so you just walk your way through. And then another shortcut is saving and quitting with the up A.
Yes.
That'll help you, and save some backtracking and things like that.
So when you load from, if you do that, it saves in the same spot.
It saves you. I think it starts you back at the maybe
Or
at the beginning of the dungeon, or if you're in the overworld.
The beginning.
The beginning. I think.
The beginning screen.
I believe that's right.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And then there's a similar thing where you could do the same thing to clip through blocks. So a lot of blocks there were a diamond shape of blocks surrounding a staircase, for example. That you'd typically you'd have to like beat a bunch of enemies, and that unlocks you to push one of the blocks and get in. So you can just clip through it. Similar sort of thing. You have to align yourself just right, and then you press up and then to the side, or I think it's the same, up and to the side.
And you can just clip through it.
And you can just clip through it. Yep.
I should have talked to you earlier.
So those are the major cheats and stuff. Another just core part of speedrunning is the game remembers what item you have highlighted, and so utilizing that, like you might pick an item and then already move to the next one that you want to hit afterwards, just so you save some time in the pause screen or something like that. That's about it.
Okay.
So the very fastest anyone has beaten Zelda 1, just any means necessary, is 26 minutes and 55 seconds.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, second place is about 11 seconds behind with 27 minutes 6 seconds.
That's like 20 times faster than me.
Oh, yes.
I know how to do math.
Yeah, that's like it's like a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah, basically. A really intense Saturday morning cartoon, though.
Yes. Interestingly, 100% completion is only 33 minutes and 28 seconds. So you
only
really
took them like
only
5 more minutes to get the extra items or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, you mostly get items by finishing dungeons anyway, so like you kind of have to get them.
Well, but I mean,
unless
you don't need.
You could just go to Death Mountain.
Well, I think you need the upgraded arrows.
You have to get that. The silver arrow.
I'm pretty sure that is necessary to beat.
Don't you get it in that dungeon, or do you get it in? I forget. I don't remember what dungeon you get it in.
I don't recall.
Someone's screaming in the audience.
Yeah, it's just been too long. So Zelda 2.
Zelda 2 gameplay.
Very different.
Yeah, no shit. It's like the exact opposite game.
Yeah, it's the overworld takes place top down.
Yeah.
All the palaces, all the encounters, all the fights, all the towns are side scrolling,
which is interesting.
Yeah.
You have still the two buttons: I think it was A to jump, B to slash.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the few Zelda games where you can jump.
Down
Only because you have to.
For you can block high and low.
Yeah.
Same thing, just don't be swinging, and you're blocking.
Don't be swinging. It's like the opposite of like always be.
Mm-hmm.
don't be swinging.
So this, you have levels. You defeat enemies for XP, and when you get enough XP, you can choose to level up.
It's like a true RPG.
Your health, your magic, or your attack.
Well, you can only choose if you have like enough, right? Because it's sort of sequential.
Yeah. So as you level up, you need more XP to level up that particular upgrade.
Yeah, right.
So when you reach enough, you are given the choice to upgrade what you can, or keep collecting experience until you can level up a higher skill. I think there's a button you can actually press to bring out that menu, but
yeah,
I never
couldn't find it.
Well, Okay,
I just kept
so
taking them though. I was like, I'll take more attack
mhm.
or whatever. Like,
Well, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't put points into magic until much later because you just didn't have good magics early on.
yeah, you just have the
So there just
shield for
really
a
was no
while.
point. Shield and jump.
Oh yeah, I forgot there's extra magical jump also. Oh, I should probably clarify for everyone other than you all, which is that I finished the first dungeon of this or the first palace in this game. I didn't finish the game. Did either of you finish this game?
No,
Neither of you finished the game.
No.
I have an excuse though.
Okay.
I fully intended.
I have
to.
an excuse. It sucked.
It's
Okay, honestly,
I think you can tell what side of the fence of the great divide of Legend of Zelda 2 we might or might not be on.
So with an emulator, I was able to use save states, which I think you played on the Switch, so you all had
There's
save
also
states,
save
essentially,
states. Yeah.
right? Yes. So I tried my best not to cheat too much, but like if I didn't accomplish, like I'd save at the beginning of a dungeon, and then if I didn't accomplish anything and got a game over, I just start from there again.
Mm-hmm.
But there are times where I'm just like, you know what, I just want to get past this. I've tried so many times.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And it was hard.
Mhm.
Like I think if I were to
I got-
actually beat the game, well, no, you should say what you're gonna say first. I think. Yeah.
I was just gonna say I got through the first dungeon under my own power, and then like shortly after that, I was like, "Fuck this!" and I opened up the Cheaty McCheat Face version that the Switch Online offers you, where you
Yes.
have
Everything's
like
maxed
all
out.
your maxed out stats and spells from the beginning, just so I could see more of the game without wanting to throw my Switch out the window.
I think they. You also have all the items as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or
Do you? I don't know.
no, you don't have the you don't have like the dungeon items, but you don't need to get the overworld items because those are just to get spells.
Oh, okay, I understand.
But you still need to get like your like the raft across the river and
Mhm.
stuff.
Okay. Okay, I see.
Yeah, but then I got to the ocean dungeon, which is the 6th dungeon, I think.
That's like the second to last, I think.
Uh-huh.
yeah, you're pretty
And
far.
Yeah, pretty.
I
Far.
couldn't beat that boss, and I just tapped out. I was like, I'm tired of this. So
Yeah, I died so many times. I think if I was gonna play this game without using the cheater version, which is what I did to beat the first dungeon, because I tried myself, and I even like grinded to level up my hearts and level up shit. Like in that stupid field at the beginning of the game, fighting those like whatever blobs or tutus or whatever they are, those things for like hours to get enough hearts and even get, because you could get like they would drop like 50 points, but then you would just die and then you lose all your experience. So I did that several times, and so even with like 4 life and like 2 or 3 magic and 2 or 3 whatever attack, it was still too hard. The first dungeon was still too hard for me. So I think the only way that personally I could get through this game was to just like grind until I got to a very high level before going to the first dungeon, before doing anything.
yeah, it's like I'm sure I could have like kept throwing myself at it and gotten better at it, but I ain't got time for that shit.
Like,
Yeah, it's
If you're a child of the 80s, with...
yes. If you could play, I think both of these games are designed to be played for years. They're not designed to be played in. We our timeline for both of these was like 3 weeks. So yeah, I finished Legend of Zelda in 3 weeks and got partway through Zelda 2 in 3 weeks. So, but yeah, if we were children in the 80s and you had all summer to play it and you didn't, and like 5 summers, or in this case I guess like 1 or 2,
and you only had like 2 games.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you didn't have that many games. You had Mario and you had Legend of Zelda. Then yeah, I probably could have spent a shit ton of time, like bombing every rock in Zelda.
Yeah.
I saw people's comments
Yeah,
where they're
like-
talking about how they kept notes. You'd have to keep notes for this kind of game.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Zelda 2 I just found frustrating. Like I think that would have frustrated me too much as a kid for me to really get into it.
Yeah.
But Zelda 1 I was like, this is fun. Like wandering
It was
around
cute.
discovering stuff was fun. It's like I
Yeah.
didn't have the time to fully explore it the way I would have as a kid, but
Yeah. There was places like if you use the guide, which is what I ended up doing so that I could also do it efficiently. There's like places where you don't even have to go in the map, but I was like, ooh, a graveyard. Ooh, look at this thing. I want to see that thing. So I could definitely see, I feel like to me at least the original Legend of Zelda game was like more enjoyable as an adventure. Zelda 2 is more like a straight up like RPG. I think it was interesting. Like it introduced a lot of interesting things that like come back later in the series that are important. Like basically this game, like Legend of Zelda doesn't have, I mean, it has like the old man or whatever, but it doesn't really have other NPCs. And Zelda 2, at least you have like the village areas where you have to talk to people and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot I like about Zelda 2. It's just
Yes.
not actually playing it.
Yeah.
The the I think some people commented. I was like Googling this, looking at Reddit, see what people said about it. And some people who really like it really enjoy the combat, which is the part that I hated the most, for the record.
Yeah, I actually do.
It's
I
so
see what they
hard.
mean. I like the combat
It's
in
cool.
theory, like
Yes.
the use of different, like you choose when to use different spells, and like having the like up and down guard, and then like later on having the like up thrust and down thrust with the sword. It's neat. And like there are times when like everything was working right for like a screen or two, and I'm like, yeah, this is fun. I'm bouncing off enemies from the down thrust
Yeah.
and timing my shield right, and this is cool. But then it would be like some bullshit freaking iron knuckle in a narrow
then-
hallway, and
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
the thing
yes.
is, the problem is like my problem is the combat is cool. It's hard. It's cool that it's hard. Like it's interesting, like you're saying, where like you have to do certain things and you have to like. Oh, it's like you can just attack the Stalfos by like stabbing its legs, like just stab the legs. And you're like, oh, smart. I didn't think of that, and or whatever. Or like yeah, but then the stupid iron knuckle that was like the worst.
Oh my god.
Um,
So
But the problem that I have is you die and then you lose any experience that you had, which I think like conceptually experience it doesn't make sense for experience. Like you don't just die with like half of your stuff that you gained. Like you should have all your experience. This is like based on your like combat experience in the game, right? Like that drove me crazy. That was the thing that
Yeah,
really
and I
bothered
think
me.
I think the biggest problem with like the combat and the consequences of dying is it really disincentivizes any kind of exploration. And it's a
Yes.
Zelda game. Exploring is the point.
Yeah, I would sometimes just like if I ran out of like so for example, when I was like grinding in the field, I would like pick the easiest ones first of all because like the like Orias or whatever the one enemy in the field can like stab you and the stabbing loses your like causes you to lose experience and you don't gain experience by killing them. So I would do the easiest ones. Yes, this is what I'm saying. And same with like the little badgery things in the first dungeon too. They cause you to lose experience,
yes.
but they don't give you experience,
Yeah.
which is a pain in the ass. And then like, but then I would just like maybe sometimes I would trigger an enemy, and then you can kind of like run away and avoid them. And then I would just trigger them over and over again until I triggered like fairies, because that's the only way to heal yourself if you don't have the spell. So yeah, it was just a pain, such a pain.
yes.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
and like
you
yeah, it's
have
like
to
I
walk
followed
around.
guides like page by page for the palaces because there's no way I was going to wander into a room with a bunch of enemies that were going to destroy me and there's nothing worth getting at the end of it. Like
Yeah, fortunately the first palace is pretty straightforward. There's like keys and fairies in every like nook. So
because I actually
that was
do like the translation of the dungeons to side scrolling.
I like the side scrolling. I like the
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah.
I just don't like what happens when it turns to side
Yeah.
scrolling.
Yeah.
Because then like they still feel like Zelda dungeons
They're cool.
even though they're like in this like weird sort of platformer space now.
Yeah. I mean it's a cool mix. The platforming aspect is cool. Like I kind of like games where you have to I thought it was weird originally playing Wind Waker where you don't jump and Link just jumps for you. Like I kind of feel like that's I feel like that's kind of weird. It just
Yeah,
in
that's weird to
general in a
get
video
used to
game.
when you're used to
Yeah.
like
You
Mario.
control everything.
Yeah.
Well, it's even like the sword, like, or the shield. Like we're saying in the first Legend of Zelda game, like you don't control the shield. It's kind of like passive. You do nothing to use the shield. And it's similar in Zelda 2, except you can crouch. So at least there's like kind of an active element where you have to choose how you're standing. But yeah, so like I kind of like the platforming aspect, and I like the side scrollers. And the dungeons had pretty cool like visuals, I thought, in Zelda 2. The palaces, I should clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Music was good.
The music was good in both of
Yeah,
them.
Palace theme was a
Yes.
banger.
Yeah, it's like the palace theme is great. It's kind of like a spy movie sound to me.
I
Yeah.
can see
It's
that.
got it's had several remixes in the Smash Brothers series for good
Yes.
reason.
Oh,
Yes.
there's really good fighting music in that game. I found in general in Zelda 2.
Yeah.
Because there's like the palace music, and I think there's the combat encounter. So like if you're in the field or whatever, you're out in the overworld, there's a combat encounter music that's very like Pokemon-esque. It has a good fight beat. Do you want to this could be a good segue to talk about visuals and stuff, but is there any other things that you well no, Cosmo needs to tell us about hacks. Hacks other than using the version
The
on the
Switch.
Switch, the cheaty McSheetface
Um,
version, as you called it, where you get actually the best thing about using that version is then if you use it and you beat a level, then you get like you automatically get you can get a heart or whatever you want because it levels you up to the next level,
yes,
which is
yes.
hilarious.
Hmm.
Best part about that
Um,
is you can use the down thrust from the beginning. There's a lot of enemies that are really easy to beat with the down
oh
thrust.
yes. Hmm.
Yeah, it's just way easier. So if you want to play Zelda 2, recommend doing it that way and not struggling
Yes.
or grinding, which is the worst.
So with speedrunning, there are a few. I mean, it's fascinating. So the enemies appear to spawn randomly. But what happens is
I think it's timed.
it's timed and based on number of steps. So every I think it's like about 3 seconds, and every oh god, I don't remember. I didn't write down how many steps, but it's like eight
Three
eight
every
steps.
3 steps.
Yeah. Enemies will spawn,
Hmm.
and they also the way that they move is actually predictable based on your location and things.
Hmm.
So apparently enemies that are directly above or below you do not like to go up or down. They'll keep going sideways. So I mean, there are these like setups where you can set it so that they will glitch, they will spawn somewhere, and you move a special way, and then they'll just walk side by side with you across an entire continent.
Really?
If you want to, yeah, yeah.
Wait, like
So
like enemies in the overworld or in
They're
the
just your
dungeon?
buddies.
in the overworld, yep. So that you won't get an encounter.
Oh.
But I mean, it's a lot of it's precise. They use a lot of sound cues, right?
Yes.
Based on the music, when the music hits a certain note, they know, okay, that's when I need to move or stop or something like that. And another interesting thing is apparently same thing as with Zelda 1. You press up and A on controller 2, you restart to the beginning. And I think it's every time it is back to the very very start location,
Yeah,
unless
inside
you are in the final dungeon,
Hmm.
because that was a second disc that you'd have to put in.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. I was thinking that this game seemed like it had a
Or
lot of
not a second
content
disc. I think it was the flip side, the B side or something like that
of the
disc.
of the Famicom disc because it's a
Yes.
floppy disk, it's a fucking floppy disk.
So you put in the B side, and they wouldn't want you to like, okay, well now you have to take it out, flip it over to get back to the first screen. So it just takes you to the very beginning of the final dungeon.
Wow.
But that also
Whack.
resets the random number generator or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can move very predictably based on that. Whereas I think, it wasn't explained very well, and so I didn't look too deep into. That's just too much for me.
You don't know everything about computers like floppy
yeah,
disks and stuff.
but but that would set it up. So honestly, actually, what they would do is they would leave the palace and just hold right to once you get the hammer, you can. There's a little shortcut that you can go through. You just hold right, and the enemies just avoid you
Wow. Weird.
until you make it onto the road.
Old technology is whack.
If you play the game speedrunning for any percent, typically the first item you get is the hammer.
Hmm.
And the way you do this is you have to in every village there's a lady that will heal you,
Mhm.
and a lady that will recover your magic. So if you talk to the lady that'll heal you a certain way, she'll walk into the house and you walk inside the house normally, and she'll heal you. But if you interrupt her, and the second that she tries to go in the house, you talk to her, she'll turn around and start like walking and flying away. and then I think you enter the building.
Can you clarify what flying away?
like
her sprite goes up, or does it just?
yeah,
Really?
yeah, because I think to go in the house, like
she has to go
she's
up.
walking and she goes kind of up, but she's going the wrong way. And then it takes you into this place called the Glitch Village. Which
sorry
is-
I offended you.
Yeah.
Which is a village that doesn't exist in the game. It's I think the first door is glitched so that you go through it and it takes you back, and if you do it a certain number of times, you can go some other place. I didn't watch that speed run. But that's called scroll lock.
Okay.
But if you leave it, it takes you all the way to the graveyard, which is pretty
Mhm.
close to where you get the
Mhm.
hammer.
Mhm.
And so you go in through there. You get the hammer, and so yeah, so that's Glitch Village. It's useful for getting you pretty far into the just cheat through a huge section of the game, and then as we said, up A, you press that on the second game to reset the game. You use that a lot to just go back to where you want to the beginning, and it also makes it easier again for you to plot your route. Then there's another thing called screen scroll, where when you're in the overworld and you have an encounter, just like in Zelda 1, how you would go to leave the screen and press a different direction and it would register you just on the other side of that.
Mhm.
Similarly, if you leave the town or the encounter but facing the opposite direction, it would think you left from that side.
Oh.
So for certain, like for the bridge, for example, you have to cross it to get to the other side. If you just enter the encounter and leave, it will keep you on the same side of the bridge. And there's a couple other encounters like that that'll do that. So, if you face,
So you're
if
saying
you
you face
leave,
forward and you back out of it.
well, the thing is that that is very hard to do. That's actually impossible to do normally. But when you're in a ferry, you move a little more glidey, and it's a little easier to do. So you can start moving left, look right, and you leave looking right. So you have to become a fairy, and you can skip through
So you have to
screens
use the
that way.
fairy magic, and then you can. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Fairy, by the way, is a magic that turns you into a fairy. It doesn't give you a fairy, which is what I expected it would do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. However,
Yeah.
well, but then you have the life spell too. So
You do get the life spell, yes.
My favorite spell is the spell.
I noticed that. I was watching like a playthrough. And it was like use this magic, and it's like spell. What is that? My favorite character was Error.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know? There's like people they call him Bagu in
Yes.
the like walkthroughs and stuff, but I think it's supposed to be a translation of bug. So Error and
Yeah.
Bug. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Joke that didn't translate.
No.
Yeah.
But they translated Error right, but then they didn't translate Bug right. So, fun
Neat.
fact. Anyway,
Um.
additional speedrunning tips and hacks.
Yeah.
Oh, so the other thing about the fairy is the best spell in the game for speedrunners.
Yes.
If you're a fairy, you can just keep walking, like just go through key doors.
Really?
Just yeah, basically you have a lot of momentum and it's harder to slow you down.
What does the
So you
fairy
just kinda,
spell do? Like normally, what is it supposed to do?
it's supposed to get you to basically an improved jump. You can
Oh,
like fly
okay.
upwards, places where you can't normally jump, and explore areas up above and stuff
Okay.
like that. But yeah, because of the way that the speed is calculated and all that, you just go through the keyhole. But if you have a key, you will still open it.
Okay.
So you have to be strategic. There's one part in particular where you want to avoid the key because you want to go through, grab. I forgot which item. I think it was the raft, and you come back, and you then pick up the key, so you can use it for another
A different door.
different door. Yes.
Interesting.
So the reason you do that is magic is limited, and you get item drops from enemies, and the way that works is every ninth enemy you kill will drop an item, and depending on what enemy you kill, they have a choice of certain types of items. So it might be a red pot that fills all your health, a blue pot a blue pot that fills only some of your magic, or a
Point bag.
point bag which gives you exp.
Yeah.
So again, it's I think a 50-50 typically for what will drop. So you count how many you are killing, and on the 9th you'll get your item. The exception is for some reason at 16 you get a fairy.
Always.
Yes. And then
This also would have been helpful knowledge.
yes.
I would have killed a lot more of those experience grabbing enemies.
Yeah.
Instead of avoiding
But I
it.
think some enemies don't drop items, and so if you miss your 16, that means at 19 or 18. Is it every 10? I think it's every 10 essentially. So at 19, so at 19 you would get your normal drop. Or if you did get your fairy starting at 26, you start getting your items again.
Wow.
So I don't know. Yeah, it's a weird thing where you have to kind of count your enemies and make sure that your enemy is the right kind when it matters.
I didn't realize like how much it was like count like hard coded counted instead of like random.
Actually,
I love
Zelda
speedruns that
1 I
require
think
like
had the
spreadsheets.
same.
Sorry, what were you saying, Cousin?
Zelda 1 had I think the same thing where every X enemy will give you an item.
I believe that it just didn't feel
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, and so again, depending on the enemy, although sometimes how you kill them would affect it. So if you killed something with a bomb, you would get a bomb drop. If you killed something with an arrows, typically you'd get an arrow drop, and otherwise you'd get certain types of items from different enemies and such.
So what you're saying is if you want to speedrun Zelda 2, become a fairy. This is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And when in doubt, use fire.
Yeah, apparently.
Oh, the last thing. So if you jump, you keep your momentum. But the enemies read your controller input to choose their position.
Yeah, how fucking annoying when fighting like a whatever it's called, an iron whatever thingy.
Well,
Those-
so what
those
would
night
happen
things.
is if you jump and let forward and let go of your stick, your direction pad, they will stop moving because they don't see you registered as pressing a direction, so you're not. So it doesn't know where to be. It stays still more or less. And then the other thing is that just like Link, if you block high, certain weapons and attacks can still hit your head because there's a little thing where your shield doesn't cover you,
Top
but
of your
head.
head sprite.
Yeah. So Iron Knuckles have the same. So with that, you jump forward, let go, and whack, and they just get hit.
Yes.
And so you just jump forward, whack, jump forward, whack, jump forward, whack, jump forward, whack, and
To
they're gone.
jump forward and let go of the stick, or like well, not touch the
Direction.
not touch the D-pad. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one is that the down thrust. If you hit something with enough health to survive it, you let go and press down again, you'll instantly hit them again. And so you just kind of mesh down when you're above enemies.
Not jumping, without jumping.
No, this is jumping because this is your down slash. You have to be in the air to do it.
No. I mean, like you jump and then you down slash and then you just keep holding down or you keep pressing down.
You keep tapping it.
down.
Yeah. Yeah, without jumping because you'll just kind of be bouncing on their head a bit.
Yeah.
And just kind of hovering over there. And so that's a good way to beat a lot of bosses.
Yeah, they don't move. There's a lot of enemies that don't move when you're attacking them.
Yes.
Like either they can't or they don't. Like the floating skull thing that I can't remember what it's called. You can just hit it one time and it stays still. Yeah, bubble. The floating skull thing. Yes.
Oh yes. So the speed run times, the one that I watched, which is called any percent no scroll lock, because there's of course speedrunners have what like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, there's
7,
always
like
stipulations.
at least-
Categories.
Yes.
Yeah, at least 10 categories. It is 41 minutes and 35 seconds.
41 minutes, huh? So like twice not twice as long, about whatever, 25% longer than Legend of Zelda.
Oh, and this is by Dude. DO00D. Dude. Dodd. Second place is 43 minutes. Oh, wow. 43 minutes and 27 seconds. So almost 2 minutes ahead.
Ooh.
Cantaloupe? Cantaloupe me? Cantaloupe me? I don't know. Yeah, he's 2 minutes ahead. Dude is 2 minutes ahead of that. That's crazy.
Wow.
For 100%, the speed is also Dude with 51 minutes and 31 seconds.
For an hour. Yeah, about an hour.
Yeah.
Less than an hour.
And any percent is 16 minutes and 20 seconds by Slackinator.
Wow.
Yeah. And Dude is behind by 5 seconds behind that. But
Dude needs to
yeah.
get their time up. Or down, I guess in this case. Nice. I thought both of these games were interesting because, like, I'm not super familiar with NES games, but they both seem like kind of interesting concepts for the time. Like a mixed game for Zelda 2, and then for like Zelda 1, this sort of like open world game. Like, I don't know how many open world games like that there were for NES.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think we've like really successfully dated ourselves accurately by describing the consoles that we were very familiar with earlier, which was, I think for most of us, N64
And GameCube.
and GameCube. Yeah, like like I said, I played an NES as a child, but it was like Mario. It wasn't, and they had the other game they had was this like Simpsons skateboarding game. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, I don't know what it was called, but I remember playing that, and those were like the only two games that they had. So as far as I know, oh, and Duck Hunt. I was reading about the light gun again recently, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. What a good time.
My first console was the Game Boy Color, so.
Oh,
wow.
cute. I think I think our first console was the N64, and then the Game Boy Color. I think we got the N64 first.
Yeah, I got into video games via Pokemon, so
Pokemon.
so the Game Boy was my entry point.
I remember getting the Game Boy Color like for on my birthday, going to like the store and getting it when I was probably like 8. Assume it had already.
Yeah, I
been
remember
out
it was
at the time.
a money lesson from my parents because I had to do my research and decide that it was something I wanted to spend my money on, and I got money out of my savings account
Oh, wow.
to buy my Game Boy Color and 2 games, which were Pokemon Red and Kirby's Dream Land 2.
Ooh, those are good choices. What was the color Game Boy Color that you had?
I had the purple see-through one.
Okay, yeah, the best color. Jane had that one. My sister had that one, so I couldn't get that one. Obviously, I have a twin sister. For everyone who's listening to this who didn't listen to any of our other stuff, so yeah, so I had to have something different, and I really wanted the lime green one, but they didn't have one at the store, so I had teal. My first Game Boy was teal.
I think I had the teal one as well.
I sold it later, and then I got a lime green one for myself much later because I can. I'm an adult with my own money.
Yeah. And I remember the Game Boy Color was relatively new at the time, and so like I had been debating over whether to get the original Game Boy or the Game Boy Color, and
You made the right choice.
my mom convinced me it was a better investment to get the newer console, even though it was a little bit more money. So
Your mom was right.
definitely.
It was better to have like 3 colors than no colors. I actually don't know how many
Yeah, the
colors
entire-
the Game Boy has. Game Boy Color has, like on the screen. I mean,
They were pretty colorful, but
We'll
I
probably
think the
depend
best
on
thing
the
about it
game.
was how it turned original Game Boy colors like one color.
Yes.
Like Pokemon Red turned like this reddish orange color.
Yeah. Yes.
A couple had like some built-in like code, I guess, for if it was played on Game Boy Color that had more complicated colors, but not Pokemon.
I am looking at a list of oh wait, what is this? Palettes from the Game Boy. Yeah, so they had colors, but like it was still limited in game. Power blah blah blah. For Game Boy Color had an enhanced built-in color palette featuring up to 16 colors.
Hoo-hoo.
Oh, wow.
I think in an NES game. So I was reading about this. Actually, this is a good transition for us to talk about the graphics from Legend of Zelda and Zelda 2. But in the NES, in the whole of the NES, there was like a step. There was a color palette. So all games, like it wasn't RGB. It had like a palette. So I'm sure whatever. I'm sure it used RGB or something, but to actually render them. But all NES games, the colors come from a palette of like 56 choices, and in each game you can only have like a limited number in each game. I think you can only have like maybe 13. I think that was what I read, and then you can only have a limited number on the screen at any given time. So like,
Oh, wow.
yes, so that's why like all NES games look very similar. First of all. And the palette is also really interesting. I read a comment, and I from my limited experience with NES games, I agree that the palette itself has like a lot of cool tones like blue and green. It doesn't have a lot of like red and orange. And then I can't explain exactly. It has to do with like in terms of like how many you can have and like what you can have on the screen, but it's essentially limited because of the memory. But yeah, anyway, the Game Boy also seems to have a limited palette in game, but it's up to 16.
Interesting.
I think the Game Boy Color was like somewhat equivalent to an NES, and like the Game Boy Advance was somewhat equivalent to a SNES in like its graphical output.
Yeah, I don't know what their like tech specs were. Oh, 32 kilobytes of RAM. Wow, crazy. 32K. Crazy. 10 hours of gameplay. Battery life.
It's like I think I have Word documents bigger than that.
Oh, you do now, for sure. The
It's so mind-blowing.
The cartridge RAM had 128. It says KIB. I don't know what that is short for.
Kibble.
Kilobit, yeah.
Well,
What
because
does
there's
the
kilobits and kilobytes.
I don't know. It's like instead of KB, it's K lowercase IB. So is it? I don't know. I don't think so.
This is a kilobit?
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not not advanced. This is like the part of computing that is like beyond my ability to understand other than in the abstract. It's like yeah, bits and bytes. I get it. But it was portable and not attached to your computer. We didn't talk about this, but the like the Famicom controllers were attached to the Famicom, so you couldn't have peripherals, which is really interesting. They couldn't have the same kind of peripherals the NES could, but anyway. But yeah, so like I said, the color palette for the NES was limited, and for each game it was very limited. And so you can see in the sample that I sent you, there's a lot of like blue colors. So a lot of NES games have this sort of like cooler color palette. They don't use like red a lot, except for like Metroid, I guess. That's a generalization. I'm just joking. In terms of like so of course, like what we said, we're dealing with basically like pixel art and like block based art in both of these games, and like sprite based art. One thing that I thought was interesting, I think it was about the Legend of Zelda, like the original one, is to save memory. So there's the overworld map, which is like a big rectangle, and then the dungeon map is also, the dungeon maps are all separate. They would appear to you as all separate, but apparently they're, the way they're designed in game, like I guess in the way it's referenced in like the graphics or whatever, is they're all arranged together in one layer. So all of them like fit together. So all the dungeon maps fit together as like in one rectangle, apparently. So that explains why some of them have like weird layouts. To me, I thought it was kind of interesting.
I think that's the one thing I forgot is for certain speedruns, you can glitch through some of those and start in one dungeon, and because of how they're laid out, you can end up in the next dungeon, or just whichever one is physically right there next to it.
Yeah, in wherever, however the graphics are stored.
Yeah.
I don't actually know how they store the backgrounds. Like, it's not, I mean, I assume it's like basically a giant sprite sheet, but I'm not familiar with that kind of programming. So, yeah, that's interesting. So that's in Legend of Zelda, or in both?
No, just the first
just
one.
The first one. Yeah, I'm not sure how. Like, obviously, so the interesting thing to me, at least from a graphics perspective, is like Zelda 2 was developed for the same systems, but it has a much different structure. Like, I don't know how they were able to like structure it so that it used the same memory and stuff. Unless Zelda was like Legend of Zelda was underutilizing it or something. I don't know. But it just seems like there's more sprites, there's more places, there's more like different textures and graphics, like in the map and stuff like that. There's more variation.
Yeah, Zelda 2 looks really good.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder. Do you know if maybe Zelda 1 was just the one side of the disc, and maybe because Zelda 2 was two-sided, they were able to fit more in the same amount of memory?
I guess that's possible. Like maybe the actual floppy they used had a different technology. I don't actually know. I don't remember. Floppy, can you turn them over? I'm trying to dredge the memories from the past. Did they somehow put like a medium to separate it and then have two floppy things in it?
Yeah, I feel like not all of them were flippable, but some were.
Double-sided floppy disk.
Should call it a flippy disk.
Yeah. Well, it's called a floppy disk because it's floppy, apparently.
Yeah.
Early floppy disks use only one surface for recording, single-sided. Yeah, initially double-sided disks had to be moved and flipped over. Double-sided disks will double the capacity. This doesn't explain how it's actually built. But yeah, so apparently there are single-sided and double-sided. So maybe you're right. Maybe Zelda 2 was double-sided and Zelda 1 was single-sided.
Yeah. Zelda 1 is also a launch game for the disc system, so probably just figuring out how to work stuff.
They were just like, we have a great way to make cheaper games, apparently. Cheaper cartridges. It took me a while into my research to realize what it was. Like, what I was like, for Famicom, I know what that is. And then I didn't realize that they actually like went through this whole like adding that peripheral, and then launching in the US, they actually like reformatted there was a whole like marketing and product research, like campaign to bring the Famicom product to North America, basically. And that's why the NES, like we talked about this a little bit earlier, that's why it like looks the way that it does. They wanted to make it like look easy and fun and, relax, gamey, just like all their other consoles. So I guess that strategy worked for them. I guess it did actually, because the NES was like a super popular console. It sold like crazy even during after the what did you say, like the video game bust or whatever.
The video game crash of
yes.
like
987
or whatever it is.
I feel like it's like 83. I think we're really like
yeah, it's earlier than that, but
so yeah,
it's after the
Atari.
Yeah, the ET game for Atari.
The one that was rumored to be buried in the desert or whatever.
And then was actually buried in the desert.
It was just buried in a dump like everything else.
No, they found it.
Oh, they found them buried.
Yeah,
I remember
they
hearing
found them
about
buried
this.
in New Mexico or whatever.
The Atari was a great console. We actually, I didn't properly explain my video gaming background because we had an Atari. My parents had an Atari, so we played a lot of like early Atari games, like Pitfall
Yeah, I
games
remember
with
playing.
no save states, no guidance.
Yeah, I remember playing OG Space Invaders at your house.
It's a rough game. I'm gonna throw it out there. I liked the actually I feel like my favorite Atari game was like Galaga. It had like crazy stuff, and that was really more of like an arcade game. Apparently, a lot of the reason also for like the difficulty with early like any at home console games was like a lot of those video game designers came from the arcade like video game industry, and so they were used to structuring games so that they would get people to pay more to play them. So instead of like being like at home and having your one game that you play for years, right, or several games you play for years.
And then you had some of that continue for the like rental market. They were like, oh, they need to keep renting it over and over again. It's like
or buy it one time.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Or keep renting it even though you beat it, because kids do that.
Yes, because they like to obsess over the same things and do the same things over.
Yeah,
and over
I remember
again.
my dad got kind of mad at me when I was a kid because I kept wanting to rent the same like movie over and over again at like
Same.
Video Hut. And I'm like, but I like this one.
Your parents should have just bought it. Like once it gets to a certain, there's a threshold of like cost.
Yeah.
Where it's like I don't know how much it costs to rent a movie. Not that much, but if you rent it enough times. Also, if it will entertain your child, like you should just pay for it. I feel like.
So interesting. That game for me
Zelda
was
2?
for the N64.
Oh, no,
N64 Tetris Spheres. It was Tetris, but on like a sphere.
Yes, I understand.
I don't know why, but that is the game that we rented that like 10 times.
We rented a game we rented all the time that we didn't own until I bought a version of it later, or I bought it later as an adult. But one game we rented all the time was Beetle Adventure Racing. It was this like shitty game where it's like a racing game where you race Volkswagen Beetles. Like it's exactly what it sounds like. But it was just a shitty game.
That's less exciting than I was imagining.
Oh.
Yeah, I was
like
thinking
bugs.
with like Beetle
Yeah.
bugs.
No. It was like Volkswagen Beetles. But it had like like the Mario like battle. Like Mario like battle levels. It had stuff like that where you had to go and like collect little beetles and stuff like that with your car. I don't know. Yeah, we used to rent that game a lot. I remember.
Are you talking about like Mario Kart, like the battle?
Yes, like the Mario Kart battle.
Okay.
Battle style game or whatever. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. I played a lot of Mario Kart as a child. Also, those were the kind of games that I played. Was like mostly Mario Kart and like Pokemon Stadium. We played those mini games forever.
Yeah.
Probably into adulthood directly from the N64 days.
I remember playing those as an adult.
Yeah. I haven't, my N64 hasn't been hooked up for a while, but it might have to be. Well, it'll have to be I actually have the N64 Ocarina of Time and what's the other one? Majora's Mask.
Majora's Mask.
Yes,
Oh,
I recently
nice.
bought them. Before we decided to plan this podcast, I was like, I want to play those on the N64, so I bought
I
them.
have Majora's Mask, but I don't have Ocarina of Time. And I remember this was several years ago, going through this like hunt to try and find the freaking expansion card for the N64.
Unfortunately, one of those is in my N64.
Yeah.
So I think like like I said, both of them were for Famicom Disk System and NES. They have like similar, I guess, ability. We're guessing that maybe the Legend of Zelda was only on like a single-sided floppy, which would make sense to me for the original release. Because there is like way more sort of like graphical and music. There's more music, so there's more different songs in the soundtrack in Zelda 2, I noticed, than there were in Zelda 1. But yeah, and then when it comes to the like visual style, I don't know how to describe these other than like like classic retro 8-bit games, and they use sprites. I think like Legend of Zelda has like pretty simple sprites. I think the Zelda 2 ones are a little more complicated. And what I most appreciate about the Zelda 2 sprites are Link's like appearance of short shorts. I think he's supposed to be wearing tights, but I interpret them as being short shorts the whole time.
It seems like he's wearing a tunic with nothing under it.
Yeah, he's wearing, that's what I mean. He's wearing like a tunic
like...
that's super short, which made me chuckle. But yeah, I think the illustrations always show.
It's like older Link wears tights, but like younger Link always just seems to be wearing a tunic and no pants, which is
he's a
questionable.
So it's fine, but I mean, I think he could use more protective equipment.
Yeah, like
for his adventure. Well, he uses magic. He doesn't need to have pants because he has magic. I think some of the interesting things about the graphics also are like the dungeons all kind of have their theme. So even in Legend of Zelda, where it's a little bit like limited and kind of the overall like setting of the dungeons is similar, it still like they all have different color tinted in the background, I guess, and all the sprites are always the same. Like all the enemies are the same in different locations.
Goddamn.
What?
Well, because I think this is Link's Awakening again, but like, because like I think in the beginning of every dungeon there's like a statue.
Yeah.
Right. But I think in Link's Awakening they're like fish.
They're usually
That would make sense.
Yeah. But I think in Zelda 1
Spoilers for
2,
the
I
ancient
think.
Link's Awakening reasons.
they're like these like griffin-y kind of statues, but I think there's sometimes fishy statues in Legend of Zelda. But yeah, there's every time you go in the dungeon, there's like the entrance is like filled with statues.
Yeah, they're like little Armos looking dudes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there are some that look more fishy.
Yeah.
And then Zelda 2 has like the little statue at the front of the palace.
Yeah, they
have a couple throughout.
They're like little knight-esque statues.
Yeah.
Which I always freaked me out because I thought that they were gonna attack me because they look.
If you swipe at some of them, they do.
What?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
I definitely
some of them will
didn't
drop
try that.
potions, and some of them turn into iron knuckles.
No,
and attack you.
I don't
So
like them.
sometimes I'd swipe it, hoping it was a potion, it would come alive. I'm like, nope,
No, you run away.
run in the opposite direction.
Some interesting things about the graphics in Zelda 2, other than what I said. So, like, we talked about how the perspective changes. The palaces themselves also have different designs, like different graphic styles and like color theming, and are interesting. But then they kind of have like platformer elements, like general platformer elements, like gaps. I especially liked the one where you get the crystal and then you can still die by falling in the gaps in the floor after. I think that was like one of the later dungeon or later palaces. One thing that I noticed is like the crystal, where the crystal's placed is in these like statues at the end of every dungeon, and it's like a face, and it's placed in sort of like the third eye spot. So I don't know what they're going for with the sort of like mythology, but that's an interesting thing that I noticed. Oh, and like one of the first images I think of all the three triforce like the three triforces together is at the end of the Zelda screen, like the classic like triforce image where it's the three triangles with the gap in the middle. Because in Legend of Zelda, one of the triforces was taken by Ganon, and you are collecting the shards from one of them, so it only talks about the two. And then I think in general, the visual content is kind of like European fairy tale-esque. There's like princesses and castles and, medieval like knights and swords and shields and crosses. And that kind of imagery.
Mysterious forests.
Yeah. And like different locations. I actually really enjoyed all the different battle locations in like the different encounter locations in Zelda 2. There's like the forest and the field and the path, the caves. Yeah.
The graveyard with those annoying floaty eye guys.
Oh my god.
You don't love the graveyard? It's so great.
Aesthetically, I do.
The fact that there's a graveyard in both of these nominally children's games, is also fun, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even the
Did you
graveyard
guys
is
see the,
European style with the crosses and whatnot.
Do you guys see the mini version of the Zelda 1 map tucked in the Zelda 2 map?
I saw that while Googling. I did not notice it while playing, but yeah, I saw that. Do you know what we're talking about, Kasum?
No.
You can just Google it and see it. I can put a link in the show notes. But yeah, if you played Zelda 1 and then you play Zelda 2, there's like a Easter egg where there's kind of like a mini version of the original Zelda 1 map that's in a segment of the Zelda 2 map that has like
it's in like the bottom left part. Yeah, it's got the graveyard and then it's got the Spectacle Rock and the lake in the middle.
Yeah,
and the forest at the bottom and
yeah, and it has like kind of like multiple. I think there's 2 lakes or something. There's like these 2 things that look Anyway, you can see it. It's cute. It's an abstraction.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's a good Easter egg.
Oh, that's neat.
Yes. Do we have other specific things? Anybody want to say anything specific about the visuals? Because I want to talk about music too, which is obviously the most important.
It is one of the most important aspects of the Legend of Zelda series. Not even joking.
No, it's actually, and it's something that I love about the Legend of Zelda series because it's also like in later games, not so much in these two games, but in later games, music is like a major part of this gameplay. Often. So here there was in Legend of Zelda 1, there's like the little whistle. Like I said, there's a little sound effect for it, and it does things in the game. But yeah, the Legend of Zelda music was composed by Koji Kondo. You would know him from every other fucking game that you love. Such as, like, I think most notably, like the Mario series. He was the lead like composer for most of them.
It's like Koji Kondo, composer of your
just
childhood.
Nintendo, composer of Nintendo. So like all the Mario games, especially like the early Mario game, all the Legend of Zelda games, he's either like been the composer or like the like lead director or whatever. Star Fox 64. Hold on.
So we just think this is a Nintendo podcast.
Yeah, basically. At this point, yes. Oh, Yoshi's Island for Nintendo 64.
Oh my goodness.
So he's good at making people cry.
So he did that da 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 da.
Yeah, exactly. I hope he sang it himself. You mean
Yes.
Yeah. I had to remember. But yeah, after like sort of, so Ocarina of Time, he's like the main composer, but as the games get more complicated, more and more people get added to the games. But yeah.
Credits.
Also Super Smash, Cosm, you're a fan. So yeah, basically every good Nintendo series, he's responsible. And I think that explains why, like, to me, like, the music in both of the games were good, but the main sort of like Legend of Zelda theme is established in The Legend of Zelda, the main game, and it wasn't. I was expecting that to be sort of like repeated in Zelda 2, but it wasn't, which was interesting. The composer for Legend of Zelda 2 is a man named Akito Nakatsuka. And he also, you would know him from Ice Climber. He was responsible for if you've played Ice Climber, he was the composer for Ice Climber. But yeah, like, it looks like he kind of moved into, there's like other games too, like, but yeah, then he kind of looks like he moved into like a supervisor and coordinator role for later games like Super Mario Brothers Deluxe and stuff like that. So yeah, this is one of the main games that he was the composer for Zelda 2. And like I was saying, Zelda 2 has... sorry, I wanted to say a couple other things about Zelda 1. I learned a really interesting fun fact about Zelda 1. So in the Legend of Zelda Encyclopedia, apparently it says that the original opening theme for Legend of Zelda was supposed to be this song called Bolero, which is a piece by Ravel. But just before the game was completed, they realized the copyright wouldn't expire, so they were trying to use like a classical piece, and they couldn't delay the release, so they decided to write a new song. So Koji Kondo wrote the theme for Legend of Zelda in one night. Would you like to hear what the song... This could have been the theme of Zelda. Would you like to hear it?
Yes.
Hold on.
Because the copyright expired?
Not, yeah, but I mean, this performance that I'm going to play for you has not. So that could have been the theme song for Legend of Zelda. If not for the copyright not expiring, we wouldn't have done da 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 da. I was
gonna say, instead he just wrote one of the most iconic tunes in video gaming history in one night. No big deal.
No big deal. Right, exactly. So really interesting fun fact that I learned. And another thing that I noticed in the first game also was that it established some of the like sound effects that are used later. So like the da 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 sound effect for when you do good stuff, and also the for like when you get like a secret thing. So those were sound effects that were established in the first game, so that was really interesting. And then yeah, like I said, for Zelda 2, there's more variety in the background music, I noticed, and in the sound effects. And yeah, we were talking about how the palace music is like a really good song. I like it a lot. And I like the music for Zelda 2. It just doesn't, I think because Koji Kondo did all the other ones
it definitely has a different vibe.
It does. It's written in like a different key. It doesn't have the same so it wouldn't have the same, as you said, vibe. It wouldn't have the same sort of like feeling and perception, and it doesn't. It has like a, I don't know, it just has a different vibe. I think there's like a little more tension in the music in Zelda, like the main theme, at least in Zelda 2 as opposed to, or in Zelda 1 as opposed to Zelda 2. But Zelda 2 has like a lot more fast music. And it's interesting, the custom that you were bringing up, the like cheats, like the enemies move with the music and stuff like that. There's an interesting talk that I also read that Koji Kondo did, where he was talking about how like and animation also needs to be like timed with music, and which totally makes sense. I just never really think about it. I think it's like a subtle thing that you wouldn't notice while you're playing, but you would notice if it was weird, right? So like enemies move in time with the music, and your attacks are timed with music. Oh, and one thing that really annoyed me about the sound effects for both games was the near death sound, where it's like a siren, and I was like, I can't deal with this.
Yeah.
That's why I played it mostly on mute. I enjoyed the music for both of them, but
I'm
I
like,
couldn't
oh,
deal
my
with that.
Pokemon is about to fade.
Yes, I have to go to a Pokemon Center. All of those were bad. All of those things were annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was near death constantly in Zelda 2, so I absolutely couldn't do it. So it was.
Yeah, like first starts off, you're like, oh no, I almost died, and then you're like, I get it.
Yeah, I am dead. I'm almost dead. Yeah, I really enjoyed the Pals music specifically and the battle music. They both have like the encounter music for Zelda 2. And I think the music in both cases really helps like set you in the mindset of being in that world and that story. Speaking of which, would you like to talk to us about the characters and the story of Zelda 1 and Zelda 2?
Such as they are.
Yeah. Speaking of those.
But first, I'm going to read you the classic original translation of the story screen from Legend of Zelda.
I can't wait. Okay, wait, I need to pretend to... Hold on, wait. I'm going back to the 80s. My hair is frizzy. I'm wearing a hot pink tracksuit. My glasses are even bigger than they are now. Okay, I'm ready.
Many years ago, Prince Darkness Ganon, in quotes, stole one of the triforce with power. Princess Zelda had one of the triforce with wisdom. She divided it into 8 units to hide it from Ganon, again in quotes, before she was captured. Go find the 8, in quotes, units, Link, also in quotes, to save her.
I feel like I could do a better translation.
Yeah. Yeah, later releases had the more refined translation of, long ago, Ganon, Prince of Darkness, stole the Triforce of Power. Princess Zelda of Hyrule broke the Triforce of Wisdom into 8 pieces and hid them from Ganon before she was kidnapped by Ganon's minions. Link, you must find the pieces and save Zelda.
Yeah, that does make a lot more sense.
Yeah, but the first one used less words and still got the point across.
I think it almost uses pretty close to the same.
It uses more extraneous words and symbols.
Yeah.
They put the Link in quotes, but Link is also in color. Like,
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, they're all... Yeah,
All those
Zelda
things
1
are
had like a bunch of
emphasized.
different colors on...
Yes. Also, I mean, we understand that we're playing a game. Like, I don't need you to tell me that I'm Link. Like, I get it, I guess. I don't know. Maybe we needed more story setting in the 80s. I don't know. I guess you can't really set story in the games. You have to set it in the start screen. Or
Yeah,
like, in
it's
the
actually,
manual.
I mean... Yeah, that's why it's kind of weird that like the Zelda 2 doesn't have like anything like that, because Zelda 1 had this little blurb, which gives you enough to go on.
Zelda 2 has a blurb.
You're like, all right, does it?
Yeah.
I didn't see a blurb.
It's not as... I can tell you what it is for...
I don't remember. It was just a title screen, and then you start off in the
Hold on.
castle.
Okay, let me read it to you. If you wait long enough, it will play the thing. It just takes forever.
Oh, okay.
After Ganon was destroyed, Impa told Link a sleeping spell was cast on Princess Zelda. She will wake only with the power of the third Triforce sealed in a palace in Hyrule. To break the seal, crystals must be placed in statues in 6 well-guarded places. Link set out on his most adventuresome quest yet. So you did have to wait quite a while for the
But yeah, that
start screen.
pretty much gives you the gist. It's like you're Link, bad guy's Ganon, Princess Zelda, need your help. You got to find these 8 Triforce things.
Yes.
You get the manual gave you a little bit more detail about like you have the character of Impa who really only appears in the manuals for a while,
I
which
noticed
is kind of
that.
interesting.
Yeah.
But she's like Zelda's nursemaid, and like she like runs before Zelda is captured to try to find help, and Zelda saves her from some Link saves her from some of Ganon's minions, and then he decides this is a good kid to go and find the Triforce.
She tests a child to do her bidding.
Yeah. I was like, Link's like 10 in the first game. Maybe find someone else.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the second game he's 16. Whoa.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe
Wait.
Yeah. It says
I think so.
It says in the thing that he on his 16th birthday. There was like a much more elaborate backstory in Zelda 2.
Yeah, there's a really long
Yes.
story for Zelda 2. So yeah, then you go through your 8 dungeons and then Death Mountain. 8 dungeons that are named after the thing they're vaguely shaped like.
Yeah, I noticed that they had interesting names.
Yeah, you got the eagle, the moon, the manji, the snake, the lizard, the dragon, the demon, and the
What do
lion.
you think a manji is?
It's the good luck symbol that looks like a swastika but isn't.
Oh, I understand. That makes way more sense. Because I was like, hey, this one's the swastika dungeon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of these are a bit more stretched than others. Like, you look at the eagle dungeon, you're like, yeah, that looks like a bird and stuff. And then you're like, this is a dragon, I guess.
There was one dungeon that was like, the secret is in the nose or something. And it was like the very top of the dungeon. It's like, that's not a nose. I don't get this, but okay.
Yeah, and so all your main players are established in the first game. You got Link, Ganon, Zelda. You've also got several of the recurring enemies of the game first appear here. Almost all the enemies reappear somewhere else. Some of them only really reappear in the 2D games, but you got a lot of classics like Darknuts, Moblins, Octorok, Stalfos, Keese, Wallmasters.
Yeah, I
Fuck
know.
those guys.
I know. I was like, man, I was trying to avoid these until Wind Waker. I didn't keep them
Yeah.
in this game.
And then the Lionel, as you noted, which had a few appearances in the 2D games, but had just made its 3D debut recently in Breath of the Wild.
It's horrifying.
They're always bastards
I
in
was
every
gonna say
game.
it's horrifying debut.
Yeah. Most of the bosses aren't really recurring, but we do have Dodongo, who appears as both a boss and just regular enemy in later games. And our first introduction of the classic spider with a giant eye, Goma.
Yeah.
Or just like an enemy with a giant eye. I feel like a lot
It's
of
usually
them-
some kind of bug thing.
True.
Usually spider, but there's also like the centipede looking one in Wind Waker.
Yeah, there's the sandy bug situation. Well, there's like Molduga. That's not what I was thinking of, but yeah, there's others.
No, I mean there's one called the Goma,
The
that
Goma.
appears in Wind Waker. Is in the one in Dragon Roost Island.
Oh.
It's like a centipede type thing.
Oh, yes. I remember there's like a buggy
Yeah,
enemy like boss there.
yeah, still called Goma, but still has a giant eye as its weak point, but
Yes.
has some differences. Yeah, and then of course Ganon in his like pig demon form.
Yeah, I noticed that. He didn't return to like evil man form in this game.
Yeah,
Only as Pig Ganon.
like we were saying, Zelda 2 story is pretty interesting actually. Not that you would know it just from the game, but so you got the same Link. It's a direct sequel, but it's not the same Zelda.
It's not?
Interesting.
No, it's supposed to be. I think at the time it's supposed to be like the original Zelda, but the later timeline editions kind of changed that. But yeah, so the story is that right now it's after Ganon's defeat, but everything still sucks, and Ganon's minions are trying to revive Ganon with the blood of Link. 'Cause that makes
Really?
sense.
What?
Yeah,
Oh, is that why they're trying to kill him, you mean?
yeah,
Oh, okay, I understand. It doesn't it only has to kind of make sense.
yeah. Anyway, but Link has like a birthmark shaped like the triforce show up on his hand, and he goes to talk to Impa, again appearing in the manual.
Yes.
And she takes him to the castle where you start off, where the sleeping Zelda is. And apparently, a long, long time ago, the king of Hyrule was handing down his inheritance to the prince of Hyrule, which we don't hear of very often. He's
Yes.
the prince of Hyrule. But he only passed him on part of the Triforce and kept one of them hidden. Or two of them hidden? I don't know. Either way, he only got part of it. And the prince was trying to find the other parts. And he heard that his sister Zelda had learned something about the other parts and questioned her, but she wouldn't tell him. And then this like evil magician that he was working with put her to sleep, even though he didn't want her to. And so he felt bad and and took her to the castle to be safe and decreed that every female child of the royal family would be called Zelda from here on to, I guess, make sure people don't forget the tragedy or something.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
I see.
so yeah, that happened a long time ago. So this is like the old Zelda, not the current Zelda.
So there was a substitute Zelda in Zelda 1?
Well, no, this would be.
Well, she
like
was just
Zelda
like the
1's
descendant of,
Yes.
like the prince, I guess, of Hyrule.
I just like that the idea that they're like, we need to establish sequels right now.
Yeah.
We need to establish, like, it can't just be iterations. These are all like different people, but they have the same names.
So then Impa gives him the crystals, which you have to read the manual to know that that's
I
how you get
noticed-
the crystals. I remember the first I talked to an NPC and it's like, you have to put the crystal in the thing. I'm like, what crystal? Where do I get crystals?
I knew that the game involved putting crystals in statues, but I like did the first dungeon and I was like, it'll be in the dungeon. It'll be an item in the dungeon. No, you just walk up to the statue and you put a crystal in it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, sure.
Yeah, apparently Impa gave them all to you.
Okay.
And it's just like, here, go save the world again.
Yeah. But this time he's 16, so he can have more responsibility, right? Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, then he goes through the palaces, which I guess are being guarded by guardians that are like, they're good guardians. They're not evil things because they're trying to protect the
Yeah.
triforce. So yeah, you go through the dungeons and then you go to the final dungeon and get your triforce and wake up the new old Princess Zelda.
It's like the test of strength in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of those like Sheikah things are all being guarded for our own good, but you still have to go and open them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it works.
So yeah, weirdly complicated story for
Yeah.
for Zelda 2.
Yeah, it didn't seem like it have to be that complicated. But I guess they wanted to make it different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not as many notable enemies in Zelda 2. Because a lot of them don't really show up in other games. Some of them have like similar.
Yeah.
They're similar to ones from Zelda 1 or from later games, but aren't the exact same. It does introduce the Iron Knuckles, which are basically Dark Nuts. I don't know why they're two
Yeah, I don't
different
know why
enemies.
they're different. I thought it was just a dark nut, and then I looked it up, and I was like, "What the fuck is an iron knuckle?"
Yeah, but they show up in like I think they show up in Ocarina of
They
Time.
do.
So yeah, Iron Knuckles. We see Lizalfos for the first time, which are like the armored lizard warrior people. Something that I think is interesting personally, although I don't think there's any official connection, are the enemies. They're apparently called Faka, which are like the bird warrior dudes
Oh,
that appear in the last dungeon. They are very evocative of the Rito to me, which I think is interesting. I don't think there's any like real connection there. It's just they're anthropomorphic bird warriors. So
I mean, there's an anthropomorphic bird thing in Legend of Zelda for sure. That's the thing. Is the Rito's first appearance in Wind Waker, or were they in an earlier?
yeah,
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because they definitely came back in Breath of the Wild, and I didn't know if they were
in
from
kind of a
game.
different form.
But similar.
I think these enemies look more like the Breath of the Wild era Rito.
Interesting.
And then as far as bosses, you got Volvagia there. It was originally translated as Barba, but that was a mistranslation. It's the same name as Volvagia, who is a boss in Ocarina of Time,
Oh.
and has the same kind of deal. Like it's a dragony thing that pops up out of pits of lava.
Oh.
And then the original appearance of Dark Link.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most important part of the game. I was watching it and I was like, oh shit, because I didn't play that far. I just watched a playthrough.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's you must fight yourself.
Yeah.
You can defeat me, Link, but can you defeat yourself?
So one thing that I found interesting was like when you get a game over screen, Ganon laughs. It's like Ganon has won or whatever. It's that
Return
what it
of
says?
Ganon, game over,
Yeah.
or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And so at the very end, it's like, wait, you fight Ganon's not even in this? How does he win then? like,
I guess because
I
they
didn't
take
realize-
Link's blood and revive him.
yeah, I didn't.
guess
I didn't realize that that's what they were
That
doing.
makes sense. You're right about that. Yes.
Like, given the
These
amount
are
of times I died by
rituals.
falling down a cliff, I imagine Ganon's being like, oh shit.
Now we gotta go out there and get his blood.
Yeah.
He fell in lava.
cliff-
What if you burn?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, cliff makes more sense. Or you fall in the ocean or whatever, or bubbles kill you in the ocean, which was a great
Yeah.
time at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, they have to drag the river to find
Yeah.
Link's body. to
Make sure there's
revive
some
Ganon.
blood in there still. Yes, yes. Well, he has minions. It's fine. Ganon seems to be able to control a lot of minions, as is established in these two games. You
Yeah.
control like the entire world against you, basically. Although, as you're saying in this game, you mostly fight not Ganon's minions, but the guardians of the palaces, basically.
Yeah.
You have to prove
So
yourself.
are all the enemies in there the guardians, or is it just the final boss of the dungeon that's the guardian?
I do not know. I
Conceptually.
assume it's just the final boss, but
Yeah, because all the other
because
ones
there's
you
some
fight
enemies
in
that
the
appear
overworld,
both
right?
in the overworld and in the dungeons.
Yeah.
So
Sounds like they're not doing a good enough job guarding those palaces then, if all the riffraff can get in.
yeah, you're like, I only have to guard the end of the palace.
I just have to guard the statue so nobody can put the gems in the statue to get the crystals or whatever to get the triforce.
Yeah.
Why do you have to? I
On
wonder
the,
why. What's the story about having to fight Dark Link? I wonder what's up with that.
Well, there's a wizard there that summons Dark Link out of you. Is it the same wizard that put Zelda to sleep? Is that what it's supposed to be?
I don't think so. The wizard that puts Zelda to sleep looks like a wizrobe, but
Oh,
he
okay.
kind of looks like the boss of the maze palace, the one that like shoots little
Yeah,
reflecty
he
magic at you.
looks like a
Mm-hmm.
fancy like a scarier wizrobe.
Yeah.
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 Like a
I
phantom.
don't know. I guess it's just like a final test of character or something. Maybe it represents Link's like doubts and insecurities, and he has to overcome them
Okay.
to wield the Triforce of Courage.
I believe that could be a good interpretation. Yeah, it makes sense. It's like he has gone through all of these other trials, then now he must face his most important trial himself. Because the wizard is there after the last palace thing is the Thunderbird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which was horrifying in and of itself, actually.
That's a really large and complicated sprite. It's pretty impressive.
I mean, it's also just interesting to use the Thunderbird in
Yeah.
general. They have like a pretty strong connotation, right? Of what I'm not sure, like, but they're powerful mythological creatures. So
Yeah, they're like they show up in a lot of like Native American mythologies.
yeah, but yeah, it is a very large sprite that takes up most of the screen. Use all of the memory.
Yeah.
Maybe it's even multiple sprites. Like, it could be.
It could be. They don't seem to move independently, but
I mean, maybe it's just
like a lot of the like multi-sprite bosses like Volvagia.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know.
But could be.
Could be.
I'm not a sprite maker.
I don't.
So
I don't do the game code.
one interesting detail is that all the towns have the same names as like the sages in Ocarina of Time. So I guess by the official chronology, they're named after the sages.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got like Naburu and Darunia and.
Not all of
Rauru.
them were sages, because I think Mido was one of the
Yeah, he's just that
towns.
dick in the Kokiri forest.
Yeah.
But most of them are the sages.
You could name a thing after someone.
Yeah.
Dick in the Kokiri forest. There's even if they're not. I mean, yeah, it's interesting that it's named after the sages, but even if not, there's like still the establishment of like place names and like people names that then are repeated later in both of these games. Yeah.
Yeah. I also think it's kind of interesting. Zelda 2 sort of introduced the concept of Zelda's infamous side quests, and that you have to like go and get this statue so you can learn this magic,
Yeah.
or save this girl's kid so you can learn this magic.
Find a mirror so that you can learn magic or something. Like
Yeah.
find a random item. Yeah, I think like that was one of the things about Zelda 2 that reminded me the most of later Zelda games, because like obviously the like life system and the magic system is not necessarily something that I've experienced in other games, but like the village situation where you have to go talk to a bunch of people, and like usually there's like something that you have to do in those places, like even if it's not immediately obvious, like you have to get an item or you have to talk to some person to trigger a quest or you have to do something like that. So yeah, that was the most sort of like Zelda-esque thing that I think for me was developed in Zelda 2.
Well, I think it also gave the world liveliness, right? There are people around doing their things.
There's other people.
Like Zelda, yeah, Zelda 1, and even Breath of the Wild is just so... I mean, I guess it makes sense with Breath of the Wild, but it's so empty most of the time that it just feels very... Because you've got like a few small towns, but with how big of a world it is, it just doesn't seem like enough to me. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I think that's a lot of people's complaint about Breath of the Wild. I can reason it from the idea that this is like a post-war world.
Yeah, because you
Yeah.
find a lot of like ruins of
Yeah.
towns that used to be there
There's-
in Breath of the
That's
Wild.
true.
I think there's like the story supports the emptiness and like the danger. Because like also, I mean,
Yes.
if you lived in the world of Breath of the Wild, would you travel? There's fucking enemies on every road. Like,
It's Lionel's.
yeah, there's fucking Lionels in the road, Casa.
No, I completely... like
Casa.
I understand why. I just... It makes it just
I understand.
lonely
I love it.
and
I love
desolate.
everything about it
Yeah.
because I like.
Yeah. I think they do a
running
good job
worlds.
making it like interesting to go through, even without having a lot of
There's-
NPCs.
there's, like,
there's
things.
something there, yeah,
Yeah.
in like every part of the map.
There's often things, but not NPCs. You're right. It is very empty in terms of like other characters. But like Legend of Zelda, the first one is there's no other characters,
Yeah,
Just
just some old
the
men
way-
in
way-
caves.
Yeah.
which is an odd life, and just
Yeah.
Zelda, and Zelda alone. Well, and then I guess technically Impa's somewhere.
Yeah, Impa exists somewhere. She fucked off somewhere after sending Link on this
Anyway,
adventure.
see you later. I'm heading out of Hyrule. That place
I
is
think I
creepy.
read that she's supposed to be like the old woman that appears in the
I mean, that makes
caves,
sense to me,
but that's not really like said in the game. So
in the Hyrule Encyclopedia, it's really funny where it's like, or whatever, it's called the Legend of Zelda Encyclopedia. It has like a character relationships map, and it's like the old man who gives you the sword, the old man who upgrades your sword, the old man who gives you the magic sword. These are obviously the same NPC. Like,
yeah,
we don't need to pretend they're different NPCs.
yeah. Once he gives you the sword,
He runs over the next
Once you,
dungeon.
he jogs over to the next cave to wait for you.
My favorite part was gambling. Did you guys go get money from the forest?
Yeah, the let's play a money making game.
I love how old games encourage
Oh,
children
yes,
to
yes, yes,
gamble.
yes.
And I like cheated and used the save state, so I'd walk in and save it, and then like pick one, and then if it wasn't the right one, I'd just reload save state and pick it again. But you can only carry 255 rupees at a time, so like you have to if you need to. And like I didn't realize for a long time, but one of the likes took my nice shield, so I had to go replace it, and that's like 180 rupees. That's almost all your wallet. Like so I had to go back there a couple times and just go get money to replace it, which was really funny.
There's one specific shop that sells it cheaper than the other shops.
Yeah, I think it was
like a couple of the shops have different prices.
60, but it's still that's like
It's still a lot.
a quarter of your wallet, and you need money for arrows.
You can't upgrade to the adult's wallet and the giant's wallet in this game.
You don't have like an unlimited wallet like in Breath of the Wild where you can just jingle jangle all your way through Hyrule
Yeah.
with all your thousands of rupees. Did you have any other story things that you wanted to talk about specifically?
Not really. They're pretty,
They're basic.
they're basic story. I mean, like I said, Zelda 2 has a surprisingly complicated story, but none of it's really reflected in the game itself.
Yeah, and the game is like go to the place, do the thing, just like in Zelda, The Legend of Zelda. They're straightforward. NES games didn't have a lot of room for major storytelling in the dialogue in the game, I guess. Yeah.
We got better things to use that data for.
Yeah, we gotta have fighting sprites. It's very important. We gotta have all our like 16 colors and like 5 at a time per screen or whatever. And play all our music at the same time, but then cut it out if there's a sound effect. I enjoyed both those games. I really like, I mean, other than the shitty things that I didn't like about Zelda 2, but I did like the concepts of Zelda 2.
Yeah.
I think Zelda 2 is less than the sum of its parts. Like, it had a lot of interesting individual aspects, but coming together to play was not a fun experience.
It's more difficult than rewarding. Like, unless you're like fully loaded, and even then it's like a lot. Right.
Yeah.
At least for me.
Yeah, I mean, I see this as something that you sink a lot of time to, something that like a skill to perfect.
Yeah.
So, you play this for months and you're like, oh, I got so good that I can beat this, this guy without taking any damage now and that sort of thing. And like if we had that sort of time and dedication and willpower, I feel like it would be good. But like,
Willpower.
that's just not what we got these days.
We have a podcast schedule to adhere to. We can't.
But so many other games and a lot like.
Yeah. Very true. And our lives outside of playing these games, and no summer off school to keep playing them day in and day out.
Can't spend my whole time playing Zelda. I've got to play the Ace Attorney game that came out last year and I didn't play it.
I can't spend all my time playing like Legend of Zelda. I need to keep playing Breath of the Wild and beat it again.
Yeah, I need to play another
Zelda
Zelda
game. I want to keep playing Animal Crossing. This like Nintendo like online subscription. I got to make the most of it. But they were both good, and I think it was interesting, especially to see all the things that kind of like come back in later games, like the things that stuck, like the things that stuck from Zelda 2 and Zelda 1, and felt familiar, and the things that were interesting explorations that they didn't repeat later.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they both felt nostalgic despite me not having played them as a kid.
True.
Like,
And they're both sort of like quintessentially Zelda. Like they both had a very, like if you have played anything in the franchise, you would have like I think like a connection to it from having played something else in the franchise. Even later games.
it's like big sprawling overworld, dungeons, triforce.
Dragons. Triceratops. We didn't talk about this very much, but I liked the bosses, the random like bosses in Zelda 1, where it's like, oh, a lizard, and then it's like, or a 2-headed dragon, and then it comes back as a 3-headed dragon.
Oh, it also has my very favorite boss, Manhandla.
What? Oh, the
That thing with
the
like the crab
heads?
claws.
Oh, the crab with the eye. Oh no, that's
Its
like
name was Manhandla.
The plant.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the thing with the heads.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the heads, the spinning heads.
Yeah, they look like crab
They
claws.
do,
so-
they do. The illustrations of it are horrifying with the
Yeah.
heads, but yes, it did look like spinning crab claws. You said the thing with the eye, the goma is like a spider, but I imagine like a crab with a giant eye because it kind of moves side to side.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my hot take.
Yeah.
But yeah, how come there's no Triceratops in Breath of the Wild? What the fuck?
Yeah.
Only fossils. Maybe the Dodongo and extinct.
No. Yeah. I was thinking of the what is it, the magical beast or whatever, but that was a chameleon, right?
Oh, the divine
Oh,
beast.
Divine
was
beast. There you
like,
go. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a gecko thing.
Yeah, there's like a lizard one.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the fireplace, so maybe it's a salamander. But yeah, there's a lizard.
Yeah. You got those Zolfos, but
They look like chameleons. I guess some of them have like horns, like Triceratops, like the Dodongo. But like it's like straight up like a kid's Triceratops.
yeah.
I definitely think like the later games have more like Zelda, kind of like specific bosses, like as opposed to dinosaur or dragon, even if they have like names. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm interested to see Ganon's evolution away from Pig Ganon.
Mm-hmm.
He's always kind of like animalistic looking, like Shadow Ganon or whatever. Like he's always sort of like whatever animalistic or like inhuman, I guess. Unless he's Ganon. Dwarf.
Yeah, it's like even
but...
yeah. Even then he usually like turns into the pig demon looking guy.
Except Wind Waker's the only one where he doesn't, right?
He has like different forms though, and they're not human.
Yeah, you've got
He's got the puppet stuff, right?
Yeah, he's got the like puppety thing.
There's like Shadow Ganon and Puppet Ganon. But the puppet ones, that's the last one.
The puppet has like a pig version of Ganon.
Yeah, they have different. There's like a dragony one too, isn't there? Like a long one.
Yeah.
He's got a snake
spider
and like a
for sure.
spider and then like the one that looks like kind of classic
Just
pig demon.
Every
Ganon.
evil animal.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like pig demons in other games, like pig enemies, like piggy enemies, like in Breath of the Wild and Wind Waker. What do they call them?
The Bokoblins,
Yeah,
right?
Bokoblins or Moblins.
Yeah, moblins tend to be pig-like.
Piggy.
Like they were very pig-like in Wind Waker and
Yeah.
So Ganon's minions tend to kind of be piggy, at least in some games. There's no Blood Moon and yet established in either of these games. The best mechanic. Well, yeah, okay. Sounds like we don't have any more things to say other than they were good, except for the things we didn't like from Zelda 2.
yeah.
I do have one more thing.
Uh-huh.
Because I'm
Is it about
sorry
to
for bringing
be
it
news?
up. No. But remember how I told you that I stopped playing?
Yeah?
Did I tell you why?
Well, you said your save file got messed up.
Yeah. So I built a new computer.
Uh-huh.
And along with it, I did custom liquid cooling.
Uh-huh.
So I set that up and everything, and it was working fine. So I put it all in my computer.
You do the liquid cooling yourself?
Yes.
Okay. I see where this is starting to go.
Yeah.
Did you use SpaghettiOs?
It's a more viscous cooling medium, so it's better. So what happened to your computer? Don't leave us hanging.
So it was working fine,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, great. So I transferred over stuff from my old computer to my new computer. And I finished that, but before I was able to reset my computer, my liquid the tube popped out and just spilled everywhere. Yup. And I think because I'm using an SSD, I think it didn't have time to save, so it was all in like flash memory or something like that.
Yeah.
So all that stuff got erased.
Wait, but
So
so
everything
what about all the parts?
So the things that it got down towards the very bottom, that tube came out. So the only thing that got wet really was
Like the hard drive?
my power supply.
Only the most important part.
Well, yeah. I mean, but that's also not like one of the cheaper parts compared to like the graphics card, the entire motherboard, and all that.
Yeah.
So that worked out. I had to replace it.
Well, that's good. I'm glad it wasn't a total catastrophe, only a minor catastrophe.
Yes.
Why didn't you back up your files?
I don't know.
You're like, oh, my save file for Legend of Zelda wasn't that important.
Well, I lost all my work stuff.
Awesome.
Thankfully, I was able to get those back.
I mean, not a total tragedy, but a minor tragedy.
Yes. Yeah.
Any final thoughts about Zelda 1 or Zelda 2? The Inception of Zelda? The Legend of Zelda, The Inception of Zelda.
No, it's all good.
Okay.
Enjoyable, fun. I enjoyed hanging out with you guys again.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good time. New series. It's happening.
Yeah.
Yay.
It's fun seeing the origin of one of my favorite series.
Yes.
Fun to see where it goes.
Yeah.
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 In order.
Except for whatever, the Four Swords, which I grouped together, but that's like a spin-off. It's not.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's only like not a spin-off on a technicality.
And
so.
it's only one game. There was only one game in between the two of them anyway.
Was it?
Yeah, it was Four Swords Wind Waker, Four Swords
Oh,
Adventure.
okay, I see. Because I remember Four Swords Adventure came out for GameCube. So.
Yeah.
And that was a standalone game. Four Swords came out with the Link to the Past remake. No.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Link to the Past re-release on Game Boy Advance.
Yes. Speaking of which, the next thing that the next game we're gonna play is A Link to the Past. Yay!
Yeah. Oh, we didn't mention our release schedule, did we? That we're like
Once a
releasing
month.
an episode once a month.
First day of the month, every month. So 1 month from now, be there for A Link to the Past. I almost forgot what game it was we were playing. I had to look at my notes.
Be there for the next one.
Yeah, the next game, next time, whenever that time is that this episode comes out. So yeah, thanks for joining us for the start of our Hylian adventure, and we'll see you next time.
Yay.
Sounds good. Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. There's also a magic wand, and you can get an upgrade to the magic wand that lets you set things on fire, which is pretty great.
Jesus, bird. What the fuck? Sorry. Oh, it just flew up my face.
He thought you were some seeds.
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't listened to a previous podcast, I have a bird. He likes to interject sometimes.
Yes.
It was bundled with a Nintendo GameCube, but it must have only been like early editions of it or something, because
Maybe.
it definitely didn't come with mine, but I was never a early adopter of game systems, especially when I was, little and didn't have my own money.
I'm pretty sure I remember asking for it when it came out. So maybe it came with it. I think it came with maybe the first release of the GameCube. There's one of this game on sale on Amazon for $984.
Wow.
So if you
Say I know what to sell.
we learned a lot of these Zelda games are really, really expensive. If you don't have them, collecting them is fun.
Just have to try and peel the GameCube stick, the GameStop sticker off of it.
And you can do whatever you want. You don't even have to. Wow, there's someone selling Legend of Wind Waker for GameCube for like $50. No, $75. Anyway,
It's funny because I bought that cheap. Like there's some see it says not for resale.
yes. That's why I think it came bundled with the thing.
Yeah.
Welcome to Try Friend Heroes, a Legend of Zelda podcast. I'm Ellen,
I'm Kayla.
And I'm Cosm. Oh.
and in this podcast,
We didn't know what order
I was
we were
about to go
gonna introduce
second,
ourselves in.
but since Kayla usually goes second, I was about to be like, I'm Kayla. And like, wait, no, that's not right. But it flows.
it definitely felt right. Wait, you weren't in the podcast where I was introduced first.
You're right.
Because Kayla always went first.
Then maybe I'm just used to being last.
Being
Being
last.
last. That's acceptable. I was just
So you are the Johnny come lately to our podcast, so
you're the third host, not the first two hosts. I don't know. Johnny come lately. What is this? 1950?
yes. That's when Zelda was released.
That's what it feels like.
Majora's Mask.
Are everywhere, unless you're talking.
Yeah, Dark Knights are in a lot of games, but the Iron Knuckles specifically
Oh, interesting.
show up in Ocarina and Majora's Mask, I think.
Train.
Train.
Can't wait till we talk about
Yes.
Spirit Tracks.
Yeah. It'll be appropriate. We don't have to edit out any of it.
I didn't realize that there was trains involved in Spirit Tracks. I just knew that there was a game called Spirit Tracks, and then I saw the cover art recently, and I was like, "Oh, that makes."
I remember having a lot of fun playing Spirit Tracks, even though it was kind of weird. But...
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to having a new opinion on handheld Zelda games because I didn't really like playing them as a younger person, so maybe it'll be different. And I also love Wind Waker, so I mean, they're one of Phantom Hourglass is a direct sequel, at least I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Spirit Tracks is a like distant sequel.
Yeah.
Like, it takes place like 100 years afterward or something.
In Zelda, that's a direct sequel.
Yeah. I think there's like a couple characters that are still alive from the original, like Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass era.
Oh. I like that in Breath of the Wild. It's like it does take place in the future, but it's like all the other NPCs are from 100 years ago. Like you're the only one who's not old. It's interesting.
Well, it's like the whole game takes place in the future, and then it takes place 100 years after that future. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
because that's like officially the latest one, the latest game in the timeline.
Spirit Tracks?
No,
No,
Oh,
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it is interesting. Zelda 1 and Zelda 2 are chronologically some of the later games in the series.
According to according
The
to
official timeline.
Oh, okay. Not Brian David Gilbert's timeline.
Yeah, although it does make sense. Like, if you're gonna slot it in, it does make sense just based on some stuff in the games. But anyway, that's too complicated to get into.
Later, save it for later. This is just the
Yeah.
first two. They're sequential. We met